How long did it take you, just out of curiosity, over the years to collect all the memorabilia you have behind you? I,
Oh,
I see it. Is that Jack Skellington?
that's yes, right there. Yes,
Okay, yeah,
it's a
yeah.
little bobblehead of his.
That's awesome. Is that the Funko Pop?
Nope. Actually, I don't. I honestly don't like Funko Pops very much.
Okay.
And there's no particular reason why. I just maybe it's the OCD of every single one of them being in the exact same shape,
I
but
gotcha. That's
that's that
badass.
right there. Yeah.
I was so
This is actually probably a fourth of my collection. A lot of it's still in storage. I need to get out.
Oh, I gotcha. Now, do you rotate stuff in and out, or is it pretty much set what you have back there?
Oh, it's what I have back there. I'm probably gonna have to get another shelf at some point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm trying to see real quick what you got. So Cartman, Link, um, that
Here, this
looks
should help a little
that
bit.
looks like a helmet from one of these.
Dishonored.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay, okay, okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say it looks like one of the soldiers, but I wasn't entirely sure. So no, that's
uh,
freaking awesome, dude. And you got a Twitch thing back there. That's cool.
yeah, my wife actually got it for me. It says, what does it say? It says, "Congrats on 1 year on Twitch" or something along those lines.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was very kind of her to do so.
Yeah, yeah. That's You know what I tell you, it's one of the most amazing things in the world because when you tell somebody, um, really anybody, especially if they're not entirely familiar with Twitch about what it is, what you want to do, and all that stuff, and they get as excited as you do and get behind it, like that's one of the
Right.
coolest things in the world. So that's
I
that's,
agree.
that's awesome. Let's see here real quick. Make sure I had to adjust thing from Nightbot. Um,
There we go.
and then looks like we got some people coming in, so we will go ahead and get started. I just want to make an announcement real quick, as I always do. With that being said, first let me go ahead and say thank you everybody for coming to the 60th episode. I can't believe, when I first started this, that we were going to have 60 guests, and then actually we're going over that because we have more guests coming up in July. So it's pretty spectacular to have been doing this for a little over a year, and to have that many people have been willing to come on and share their experiences about content creation, their life, their goals and their dreams essentially, and it's been an amazing experience. With that being said, we have another amazing guest today, Bargain, Ben Gaming.
Hello.
I have seen an announcement on Twitter before. It's Bargain, so I want to make sure I got that. I want to make sure I got that right. And super happy to have him on for the 60th episode. And as always, I appreciate everybody stopping by. But we do have one rule during the podcast, aside from obviously, the normal rules in the chat. And that is that while we're doing the podcast, um, I appreciate everybody being in chat, follows, subs, anything like that. That is extraordinary. However, as a courtesy to the guest, I give them my undivided attention, so we turn off all alerts, everything like that. Because the guest was kind enough to come on, so we want to show them the respect they deserve and put the focal point on them. So
I'm gonna give you a little tidbit
okay.
because this freaked me out for the longest of times. Um, on your screen that
Hmm.
you're sharing right now, where it says the purple bar, if you hit the X right there, it won't mess with anything, but it'll make
Oh
it go
yeah,
away.
sorry.
Mm.
Gotcha, gotcha. No, you're
Every
fine.
single podcast I've ever been on, I've always had to say that. I always feel like an asshole saying it
No,
too.
no, 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 you're fine. You're fine. You're fine. Um, so with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Bargain because, as always, the guests can introduce themselves better than anybody else could. So if you want to take a minute.
Oh man. Hello. I'm Bargain Bing Gaming, a full-time variety streamer, typically streaming older things, such as well, what am I streaming? I took this last week off, so I have to think about what I've been streaming. Uh, Fallout New Vegas, Dragon Age Origins, Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, South Park Stick of Truth, which was kind of thrown in there last second, but we've been having a fun time with it. And do my own podcast Saturdays at 7 p.m. Central. Though we are going to, at the start of August, take a hiatus from it to break it up into seasons versus just straight on through. Mostly for my own sanity.
Now, with that being said, when you say breaking it up into seasons, that's kind of an interesting dynamic. Like, what kind of drove you to get into that as opposed to
Just doing it
yeah,
all year round.
yeah.
Well, my wife gave me the idea,
Oh,
actually.
okay.
She pointed out that a lot of bigger streamers that do podcasts do the same thing. And I think it's mainly easier for me to book people if I have a couple months off in between and just don't get as burnt out and just, don't talk about this over and over again. Though, I mean, our focus on this podcast is to talk about gaming news. So it's usually not the same topics, but I do feel like here in the last few months, we've gone on about the same things a few times, and it gets stale, I suppose you could say.
Okay. Well, no, that's reasonable. And I think that's one of the things too is getting the guests when you give yourself a little bit of leeway, you can schedule people out in a more
Hmm.
timely fashion than having to feel rushed or them feel rushed in any way, shape, or form. Um, so, as always, I'd like to kind of start at the beginning. What got you into playing video games?
Uh, oh. I I have three older sisters. When I probably started playing video games when I was 3 or 4, kind of hand me down, not hand me downs, but family owned consoles. I think the first one was probably the NES. Yeah, it would have been the NES because it had Duck Hunter and uh, the Mario game on it. And it was put in front of me. Honestly, not upset about it by any means,
Oh
but
yeah.
uh, that's probably the main reason.
So was your first major antagonist the dog from Duck Hunt?
I guess so. Yeah, I guess so.
Nobody. That dog. I love the fact that I guess minor spoiler if you haven't played it, but they show you it in the trailer. That horror game that came out, Duck Season or whatever it is, they made the dog the antagonist. It's like a mock-up of Have you seen that game?
Mm-mm.
Okay, it's kind of a mock-up of um, Duck Hunter, and
Hmm.
it's they took the dog from Duck Hunt, sorry, and they made it kind of the antagonist in this mock-up
Huh.
version of the game, which is kind of hilarious. But again, it's a horror game, so it's kind of
Right,
weird
right.
how that works. But um, so you kind of started with NES, and then was that your major introduction, or was it because I played around with the NES too, but I don't really remember a whole lot about the games. I got mostly introduced going into like SNES and stuff like that. Was there like a console you were like, okay, this was mine?
I honestly, I know we had the SNES. I know we had it, but I don't remember any of the games from it. But probably the N64
Okay.
was I guess, defining console because with the NES, I know that we only owned so many games for it, and like two of them were games I didn't play because like I said, three older sisters, like there were Barbie games, shit like that. So uh, I only got to play so many on that console, of course, taking turns with everyone. By the time the N64 came out, uh, my sisters had grown away from gaming, so it became more my console
Okay.
gradually. And I played a lot of N64 games, a lot of them.
All right. Well, let's reminisce. What were some of your favorites?
Anything Star Wars, Rogue
Okay.
Squadron,
Rogue Squadron.
Shadows of the Empire. Oh gosh.
Rogue
Oh,
Squadron was probably one of the best Star Wars games. A lot of people didn't have the chance to play it. I loved it.
it was so good because, and it's funny looking back because looking back, it's such a barren game. Like there's not
Yeah.
much in it. It's mostly just planet surfaces with very, very few buildings, which at the time was fun because it felt like it was actually somewhat lived in. Um, it had pretty good voice acting,
Yeah.
looking back on it though, and I think that really did the justice of world building that even though they had limitations at the time as far as graphics go and whatnot, at least with voice acting, you can kind of work around it, so to speak.
I think one of my favorite things too was, and this kind of goes in Shadows of the Empire, and then also as well, the Jedi Knight series, which
Oh yes,
wasn't for 64, but Kyle Katarn still to this day one of my favorite characters in
me
Star
too.
Wars. Yes.
I
Uh,
love Kyle Katarn.
well, he's basically. I mean, this isn't trying to be derogatory to the character. He's Han Solo with a lightsaber. I
Oh,
mean,
he is. He is.
you know,
Oh, he's an asshole. He
yeah.
really is.
What's
He mellowed out, by the time I guess
Jedi
really Jedi
Academy?
Academy.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But even in Jedi Knight, Jedi Outcast, he was kind of a dick.
Yeah. Well, I remember famously they go to one of the Sith temples that Darth Vader frequented, and when they get there, Luke says, "I feel disturbance in the Force," and Cal says, "You always feel disturbance in the
Oh
Force."
yes, I remember that line.
um, but by the way, for those of you who not like, I not plugging for Steam, but definitely look into those games when they're on sale on Steam. The Jedi
They
Knight
were.
series.
I think I bought them all on sale.
I feel like you can get them for like $3 a piece or something, like pretty cheap.
Um, they might still be on sale because I think the Steam summer sale is a summer link thing. But if they were normally,
It ends the 8th, I believe.
okay, well, if they were normally like $8, if I can get Steam to load here, I believe they're like $3 right now a piece. And
Yeah.
obviously, if you get the bundle, it's even cheaper. So you should, and it's not just the Dark Forces games either. Like it's all the Star Wars games on there
Yeah.
are dirt cheap.
Um,
So it's
and if
so
you,
worth it.
to anybody out there, if you have not had the pleasure of playing the Knights of the Old Republic series, that, you know, obviously, you, you can't go wrong. Some people don't like the second one. I didn't mind it at all. Obviously, it didn't live up to the first one.
I appreciate some story elements to it. It was such a buggy game, and that's just kind of Obsidian's bad luck when it came to kind of hand-me-downs with just like Fallout New Vegas. They got all the
Which you're playing, by the way.
Yes, I am playing right now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it's definitely. I've always been in the mindset that Fallout 3 was my favorite, but I'm to the point now where I think New Vegas is my favorite, just because it's such an intriguing thing to where in most games, if you can't kill everyone, you can't.
Right.
They'll have the NPCs. What's it called? Pretty much plot armored NPCs,
Right.
where they just get knocked out. But in New Vegas, you can kill anybody. You can go around and murder every single person, and they will get to some kind of ending eventually.
Yeah.
Which is amazing to me.
I think
Uh,
with New Vegas in particular, I think one of the things that I really enjoyed about it was it harkened back to Oblivion, Morrowind, those type of Bethesda games where the main story is not bad, but the main story, I think, in those epic scenario RPGs, especially because they end and they don't end some type of climactic, world destroying, you know, finale. Um, they're always going to be. I don't want to say a letdown, but I think you could always overhype them in your mind. But the stories that go around in the world that help the world build with the characters, I think, are what truly build a live universe. And I think New Vegas did that better than any Fallout game.
agreed. Especially 4. I think
Yep.
4 well, 4 was problematic for so many reasons. It wasn't just the shallow plot, but also even the plot twist. I was like, I kind of saw it coming. I don't know. I just nothing about.
Okay.
The problem with 4 overall, though, I think, is what I was going to say was they were still on the same engine as, I believe, 3, if I'm not mistaken. So it really, at that point, became pretty clear that it wasn't looking so fresh. What were you going to say?
I was just gonna say, spoiler alert for anybody that hasn't played it. Earmuffs now. Change the channel. Come back and find you. And you've played it, correct? I don't want to.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes. Yeah. Mm.
Was I the only one that shot father first without asking questions? like,
I,
I was like, I don't need to know. I was like, I don't need to know where this is going.
I, I thought about it for a split second. I'm like, man, because I genuinely thought like, this dude's my son, isn't he? I don't know. Like, I want to say early on, there is some line of dialogue where if you kind of pick it apart, it's like, is this really what's going to happen? Something along, my journey through the main story. Because like with any RPG, I always try to do as much side missions as possible as I'm going through the story, because that's how it should be played.
Right.
Which is kind of funny to think, like, for example, what's the game? Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion.
Right.
The world is at stake. Yet I'm over here carrying some supplies to some random dude. That could wait a few minutes, but that's always I've always played it, because I feel like, well, I guess more so, especially when I was younger, I was always worried games wouldn't have an epilogue or a post main story thing like Legend of Zelda. I especially early on with Legend of Zelda, once you beat the game, you were done with the game. So for a long time, I just kind of assumed that's how all games were.
Yeah, I think, and I'll tell you a good example of more than you. God, if I make a bargain pun, you're just gonna hang up the. No, but
Get
like,
it all the time.
no, it's like, but Red Dead Redemption 2. Once the main story wrapped up, you went for another couple of hours, really.
You did, yeah, because you.
And I was very surprised with that being an epilogue. It almost felt like DLC at,
It
certain
felt
point.
like DLC, but I would have been a little upset if it had been DLC, because it wasn't very in depth gameplay. Because
Right.
if I remember right, you were
It was
the
farm building.
protagonist from the first one.
Yeah.
That's what it was. That's what it was. Which was cool, kind of alluding to, the events of the first game about to happen. But had it came out on its own, I would have been very upset. And by the way, the Steam sale on Star Wars games are still live for now, at least. For example, Dark Forces, normally $6 is $2.09.
Nice.
So 100% worth it. There's one game I always wanted to play Star Wars wise, but I never had a PC for it growing up. It was pretty much Age of Empires meets Star Wars, and I'm trying to
Oh
find
yeah, yeah. I
it.
got that one. It's the RTS.
Yes, yeah. I
Yeah.
can't remember what the hell it's called though. I'm gonna find it though. Yeah, but it's an RTS game, and I've always heard good things about it, so I definitely want to try to check that out. And I got Shadows of the Empire. There's a lot of really good old ones on there. I was very impressed with the amount that Steam had, especially.
Empire at War.
That's right.
Okay.
I would really pick them up soon too, because I got a feeling that at some point Disney's gonna be like, "All right, Steam, we
Where's
see
our
what
cut?
you're doing." Yeah, no, it's got to happen. So I have to imagine, like, as far as these games being on sale, we're probably not gonna see them as much,
Yeah.
because Disney's gonna come on through and be like, "Yo, where's our money? Come on, Star Wars, Disney, we're tied together forever now."
Yeah.
Which is a damn shame.
Yeah.
I really, really hated the sequels.
Did you?
I really did.
Um.
I even didn't, because most people were
Let
like,
the hate flow through you.
most people at least were like, The Force Awakens was pretty good. I was like, no, it's not. It's nostalgia.
Yeah.
Oh, look, Han Solo and Chewie together. Cool. And it's no one's fault, unfortunately, because Carrie Fisher unfortunately passed away. But we never got a scene with the 3 stars from the original trilogy together, which is a fucking shame, because they had ample opportunity to do so. They just, I think, were worried that the scene wouldn't, uphold the people's standards. Which I guess you can say about the whole entire sequel trilogy, right? no matter what they did, people were going to complain. Although
Right.
I will say the screenplay that got leaked of the original director of the third movie looked really fucking dope in comparison to what we got.
Right. I think that yeah, Hollywood does this, and sometimes game companies do it too, but I think Hollywood's the worst offender. They do this horrifically safe play a lot of times. And you know, and then when they can't make up their mind to find happy medium between doing the opposite of what people, the circumventing expectations. I went on a tirade about that with the second one once with, Ryan Johnson. I'm sitting there thinking, you can't, like, if you walk into a steakhouse and they put a plate of spaghetti in front of you and they go circumventing expectations, you're going to be pissed. Like, that's just not, you expected, if it's the best steak you ever had, or maybe they fried it in garlic butter or something different like that. That's something you can do different. But if you walk into a steakhouse and order a fillet, and they put a plate of spaghetti in front of you, that's not in any way, shape, or form like a relevant twist. It's just not well done. And I think
I I didn't hate what they did with my boy Luke. I like the idea of it. If something dramatic enough had happened, besides, like, yeah, his fucking temple and all the students getting murdered, not good. But we didn't get to see it. All we saw were some fucking buildings on fire. That
right,
doesn't build enough tension for me to be okay with him being a goddamn hermit.
yeah,
Because, I mean, growing up, he was the one guy that never lost hope because he was a new hope, for fuck's sake. You know what I mean? It just,
yeah,
and then I, 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 I don't think Ryan Johnson's a very good director, to be honest. I've seen his other works and I don't think he's very good. But I'm also very picky when it comes to directors. Michael Bay, I will talk shit on Michael Bay for hours on end. I do not like that man at all.
you know what's so,
J.J. Abrams, too. I don't.
every time that somebody talks shit on Michael Bay, though, I just think of the epic rap battles of history, where
Oh my god, I've seen
he came out and he's like, it's all about the mother money, it's like, we just, he's like, talk shit on me, I don't care, I got money, just,
It's true. That's
yeah,
true. I'll give the man credit. He knows how to market films.
yeah,
His trailers for his movies, on TV and theaters themselves, go right to his market audience. And I mean, look, the first memory I have of a Michael Bay film is Megan Fox sweaty working on a car. I still remember that from the trailer. So like whoever his marketing team was, he probably paid him a lot of goddamn money.
yeah.
Truth be told.
I think,
I just go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say, didn't he do Armageddon? Because I think that was the first movie of his I saw.
Was that him?
Here, we're all,
I'm booking it up right now. It was so no. That actually, you're right. No, I had seen Armageddon when around the time it came out,
yeah.
and even then, that movie aged very poorly.
Oh, it did. Yeah, everybody in
I
that film was
so
stupid as
distraught.
hell.
Oh no, everyone was a fucking idiot. And I went back through on it. Because I saw it. I think the last time I saw it was like in 2003, probably. And I recently watched it actually last year. I'm like, you know what? As much shit as I talk on Michael Bay, at least there's still this movie, and I was blown away at how terrible it was. The amount of plot holes. But going back to Ryan Johnson, I I don't think The Last Jedi was. I think it was salvageable. It sounds silly because if you eliminate this, you eliminate literally half the plot. But if you took out the casino portion, well, like I said, it's half the plot. It's not that bad of a movie.
Right. Yeah, the casino plot basically is they go to find a guy who's, I can't remember if he wasn't the right guy or he doesn't help him in the end anyways. And then and then
Oh, What's his name? The actor
Benicio
guy.
del Toro.
Yes, the El Toro. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was such a because his character was likable. And
Well,
then
he's a
this thing,
phenomenal actor.
oh, he
He's,
is. He is.
what's the Sicario is a great movie.
Yeah, yeah. I it's funny to me because they built up a decent amount of scenes with him with Finn and Rose. So shocked I remember their names. I've never struggled so much with learning people's names like I did with the sequel Star Wars movies. They're so forgettable for whatever reason to me. Which, I mean, you can make the same case as the original trilogy. Luke, Han, Leia. That's pretty fucking basic. But, the big plot twist that I was working with them all along and then leaves. It is never brought up again. It was so sudden, such a jerk movement. It was just, the entire thing should have been scrapped. 100%.
There were so many. The moment that I knew, I'm gonna tell you, this is gonna sound strange, but the moment that I knew that the series were not gonna work, Force Awakens. They had Yu Rohani and Iko Kawas from The Raid, which is one of the best action martial arts films of all time. And they had them as bounty hunters. This is when there was like that giant alien on the ship or whatever that that attacked the bounty hunters that were looking for them, or it was like some like tentacle monster or something like that. I don't know if you remember this or not. There was a because what I think is what they
so vaguely.
yeah, when they went to find Han and all that stuff, and then they were so.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I do remember that scene.
So those
stupid scene.
Yes, but
terrible scene.
Those two guys, and I'll for copyright reasons we won't show it on here. But I mean, I will sit if you haven't seen The Raid. Have you ever seen it? The Raid Redemption. They renamed it the Redemption. They renamed it the Redemption Raid Redemption for the American release, and I have no idea why, because it was originally just called The Raid.
2011-ish, right? I want
2000,
say.
yeah. 2011, 2012, something like that. It's one of the best action films of all time. And those two guys were the Iko Kawas was the main character, and Yu Rohani was the main villain, or not the main villain, but like the main like badass, martial art action villain, right? There's always like that. Right. There's always like that. That main antagonist who's like the brains of the operation, and then there's the other guy that does like all the martial arts fightings in those movies.
Oh, it's the one with the apartment complex.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember that movie. Yeah. No, I had seen it.
Yeah. So those two dudes were the two main guys from it, and they were in the movie. They were in Force Awakens for 5 minutes. They had bullshit deaths. They didn't get to do any action. I don't even think they fired a gun. And what a waste of talent. Like, what an absolute waste of talent. Give those guys a lightsaber and let them go ham on some people. Like, what a waste of talent to just have those two guys who are as far as I'm concerned, action star legends.
Right.
And just have them basically make... And the thing about it is that it wasn't even like a little fun Easter egg cameo. Like, what's his name? The guy that plays James Bond.
Pierce Brosnan?
No. The guy that plays.
Sean Connery.
No, the guy that plays him right now, blonde-haired dude.
Oh, Daniel Craig.
Craig. Daniel Craig's in Force Awakens
as a
stormtrooper. Isn't he?
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember all of the cameos.
Yeah. But it's just an undercover thing. He wasn't. It was just an Easter egg.
Which is most of them.
Right.
Like the drunk trader at the beginning of Force Awakens is played by a British comedian whose name I can't think of all the time. But yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, and so, but again, Iko Kawas, Yu Rohani were not. They were, it wasn't an Easter egg. That's them. They're right there, and you could have easily have put them as even put a mask on them and had them as the Knights of Ren. and
Right.
which again was something that this badass plot, and they what did they last 30 seconds at the end of the third movie, if that. Uh,
Right.
and it just there was I think what disappointed me the most about the series was,
Mm.
and I was hyped, especially about Finn. I was hyped about Finn because I was like, you know what? Stormtrooper, PTSD, goes to become a Jedi.
It's Kyle Katarn.
Yeah, it's Kyle Katarn. This could be a Kyle Katarn plotline, and I'm okay with that. And then Finn became the most him and Poe became the most obsolete characters, you know, and it just
A lot of people ship them, and I'm like, I would have been down for that. Yeah.
well, yeah, I
They
mean,
had much more chemistry than either of the two male actors with
oh yeah, Adam Driver and
John Bogata, whatever, I can't think of his name,
John Boyega. John
with
Boyega.
Ray.
Yeah, yeah,
Thank you,
yeah.
with Ray. Both of those two individually had no chemistry with Ray, but those two together had plenty. And I'm like, just do it, Disney. You always beat around the bushes anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean, I mean, you could have done so many things. I mean, in regards to that, in regards to the Knights of Ren, I was not opposed to Rey being a nobody who was super special with the Force, but
Right.
they I don't want to be mean, but I mean cowardice. They backed out of that so quickly to
Oh,
be
they did.
like, oh no, it turns out that she's just happens to be related to one of the most, the the granddaughter of one of the most powerful Force users of all, and we have to bring him back for the villain. Like,
Oh, it's so lazy.
yeah,
It's which to be fair, well, no longer canonically speaking, but in the what's it, expanded universe now, uh, what do they call it? Legends, I think now is what they call it. That happens. Palpatine does clone himself,
yeah,
so they stole that idea, but just did it really poorly.
yeah. Well, I
And
mean, they stole it, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I do want to say this real quick.
no, by all means,
Some of the ideas that they've you can tell I'm serious now because I got the pin. No, no, but some like the ideas that they took from the expanded universe. Um,
Vanth,
yeah,
for
yeah,
example.
yeah. And what was some of the other stuff? Well, some of the characters dying. I mean, that was taken from the expanded universe. Those characters died in that order. Um, Ben, they took the name Ben. I mean, they named, wasn't, yeah, because it was Ben Solo, right? No, it was Ben
Right,
Skywalker. Ben Skywalker was in the expanded universe, right?
right, but
Yeah, yeah,
still,
same, yeah.
it's
Uh,
pretty, which is kind of. Well, no, I was gonna
it
say
made more sense
it,
that Luke would have named his son Ben than Leia, who
well,
had no.
it sounds like if you take well, I guess it depends on what would be considered to be canon because if you take her message to Obi-Wan in New Hope, you can either make the case that it sounds like they know one another,
Right.
like because she says something along the lines of you served with my father during the Clone Wars, yada yada yada. You can make the case that she's aware of it because both her father and Ben told them in some kind of capacity through, secret meetings that they could have done on Tatooine, whatever have you, with the Rebel Alliance. Or she has no idea who the fuck this guy is. He's pretty much a ghost story, which is more likely to be that. So I agree. Which again, that's why I'm so excited for the Obi-Wan series because maybe they can explain some of that a little bit better.
That's the thing. For the longest time, I think and I will be fair. I will be fair to critics who say, well, the original series wasn't. They had plenty of flaws too. Okay, fine, they did, but I think the best Star Wars stuff we've gotten, which actually I will say this, under Disney, I do like Rogue One.
Oh, I did too.
Yeah, I enjoyed Rogue One, and
I did.
I'll be honest with you too. I just want to say this one last thing. Talking about the prequels, I wanted to get the hell away from the Skywalker family because we're getting into like Dragon Ball Z territory where at a certain point in the series, it was either Saiyan or GTFO. You know,
Was fine with the prequels still being around, like the background of Darth Vader. I made a tweet about it. I love the political side of the prequels. Some of the dialogue explaining it wasn't amazing, but the base premise of some kind of grand conspiracy is pretty dope in my eyes. Now for the sequels, yes, I would have them get away from the Skywalkers completely. And Palpatine now, it would
yeah.
seem. Which, Abrams has said multiple times now that they had no plan. So who's to say that it could have easily gone some other way too?
It
But
it was even worse than that. He said, because the quote will be etched in my brain forever. He said things would have turned out differently if we had walked into this with you've been a director for how long, and you don't know that the basics of a script, beginning, middle, end, and you didn't have any of that planned out. This would literally work for nobody that didn't have a an already established career and well, anything to do with creative storytelling, because like you and I could not like go pitch a comic book to Marvel or Dark Horse or whoever and say, "Hey, we've got this idea," and they'll say, because what's the first thing they're going to ask after you tell them the idea? What's the plot synopsis, and can we see a script? And we couldn't be like, it's Bargain Bin Gaming and Yanni May. Like we we couldn't do that, and it was just so telling that as a director, he made it sound like it wasn't like, yeah, we really screwed this up, guys. It was like, did you all know that storytelling requires you to know what the hell you're doing? And
I couldn't fathom the idea from the get go to have three different directors for each movie.
yeah,
I to me, pick someone that's. I would have rather picked a no name, honestly. Like J.J. Abrams, when I saw him, like George. No one knew who the fuck George Lucas was when the originals came out. No one knew who, arguably any of the cast members were. Outside of I think Billy D. I think he had some
right,
more major mainstream stuff, but still, like, oh, and of course, Obi-Wan, obviously.
yeah,
Alec Guinness had plenty of experience there, but the three main people and George Lucas himself, no one knew who the fuck these people were. Why
right,
would you go with someone so well? No, not only that, but someone that had just done a Star Trek movie.
yeah,
To me, that would just make it feel convoluted in the sense that what works for Star Trek probably isn't going to work for Star Wars. And you could see that he used a lot of the same ideas, especially from a cinematography standpoint, with both movies, because he's so well known for the lens flare thing, and I hate it so much.
yeah.
It's such a trope now in action movies, especially sci-fi movies. I would have rather gotten a unknown person. Well, some experience, but a relatively unknown person. Let them do the first couple of movies, and by the second movie, people hate it. Could have been worse. What happened?
Yeah, it would have been. Well, yeah, it would have been exactly what happened if that was the scenario. Um, I don't know about an unknown. There is one person I think the world deserves a Star Wars directed movie from or TV show, and that's Kevin Smith.
Oh
Um,
man,
you know,
that would. I feel like Kevin Smith, and this isn't to say he can't do a serious directed movie. I feel like it would have to be a certain kind of themed. I would like to see something with Disney Plus with him. I wouldn't like to see a mainstream film with them. I think Disney
he
Plus
could have
would be
done
right up his alley.
the solo movie. I mean I love Ron Howard, but you could
I could
tell
see
that Ron
Solo.
you could tell that Ron Howard was literally pulled out of the Disney, hat of big name directors to get somebody or to get people interested in this.
Right.
So this big name director behind it. Like, look, we're gonna take this, super serious, and it's
Ron
just
Howard was such a weird choice
yeah,
too, in my opinion.
yeah,
But I was. I think because Solo was very quirky.
Yeah, it was.
I think Kevin Smith could have done that, but I just imagine him like doing. Let me think. Okay, so imagine like either Rebels or Clone Wars, depending on which season you look at.
Mhm.
They have that kind of almost whimsical sense to them,
Mhm.
kind of goofiness. That, but live action would be perfect for Kevin Smith. I would love that.
Yeah.
I just if it has too dark of tones, I just don't think that's Kevin Smith's style.
Right. I
Unless he has some fucked up dark humor behind it. But go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say actually you named like two of the best things to come out for Star Wars, and that's Rebels and Clone Wars.
Mm.
Clone Wars for me, and I don't want to. I didn't hate the prequels. I mean, people always,
They fleshed them out very, very masterfully, I think.
yeah. Um, but if you put the Clone Wars side by side with the prequels, it's even better. I think it's so much better
It is. It
to
is.
yeah to get that fleshed out and um, I don't know. There's so many characters that they could have. I mean, he might be. I don't want to ever doubt the power of you know Samuel L. Jackson, but I don't know if he's too old now to do like a three-part action movie or something. But I mean, Mace Windu would have been awesome. You know?
And it's I and I know this is probably wishful thinking, but I have very little doubt that Mace Windu is still alive. You cut off
I
the
agree with
dude's
that.
arm,
Yeah.
and he flew. You don't know exactly where he landed, and his body was never found, as far
Yeah.
as we know. He could be out living and hiding, because I mean, you look at the two Jedi that were able. Well, there's obviously more, depending on if you look at Legends or not, but two of the more notable Jedi that were in hiding were Obi-Wan and Yoda. Mace Windu's right up there with those names
And
by far
what
as powerful Jedi go.
what's her name is canon? Sokka.
Oh yeah, so Katana. You're right.
Yeah.
No, you're right. You're right. You're
Um,
right.
she's she I guess canonically she's the first acknowledged Grey Jedi. Um, cause
I've always, well, acknowledged. I've always thought Qui Gon Jinn is a great Jedi,
yeah,
personally. But like you say, knowledge.
yeah.
That's really you nitpick stuff he does and be like, all right, man, that's kind of great Jedi-ish, but they never say it.
It was always funny to me too because Qui-Gon Jinn, and I don't know the full depth of his backstory, but he always seemed like the least Jedi of the Jedi. And I know that's
Oh, he was.
what you're kind of getting at, but he also seemed like okay, like how did you get to be a master when like they were completely picking on Anakin every 5 seconds for him like not paying a parking ticket essentially or what but like Qui-Gon Jinn's like the dude that shows up late to every single meeting and there's just a reefer cloud behind him there's like like but I mean he just strikes me as like how did you get it but I always liked Qui-Gon Jinn. I was happy that in both Rebels and Clone Wars, Darth Maul got more screen time because I thought that was a real um, underrated. It was such a badass character, and Ray Park is that his name? The guy that played him. Uh,
Ray Parker? Is it Park? It might be Park. I don't really remember, but
well, he did. I think he
uh,
did. I think he did a great job. I mean, he didn't have like too many lines, but like he did a great job. Bringing that character to life with
I
a
was
fighting
so
style.
pleased though when they had Sam Witwer take over for him because I believe Ray had a back injury.
Yeah.
So the cameo in Solo is Sam Witwer, who has been voicing Darth Maul now for years and years. Of course, he's a fantastic voice actor in his own right. He's oh gosh, what all protagonists did he play in video games? There was a Star Wars game, Force Unleashed 1 and 2. He was the guy. The zombie, biker game, Days Gone, he was the antagonist, or I'm sorry, protagonist rather.
Okay.
And he's done a lot of voice acting. He's just really exceptional at it. Um,
Now,
I hope we get something with him.
now we just kind of hope for Troy Baker to be in like one of these things.
I
Um,
love Troy Baker so much.
yeah, dude, Troy Baker, like I didn't realize how big of a dude he was. Like he's like 6'3". Like,
Is he really? I didn't know
yeah,
that.
yeah. No, because in the motion cap stuff and all that, it's always kind of funny because he's towering over people.
Oh,
Uh,
right.
it's like, wait a minute. Um, I remember the year that BioShock and what was it? It was BioShock and oh yeah, BioShock and Infinite and Last of Us came out same time, and I was like, well, Troy's gonna he's gonna win Best Actor one way or another, like a voice actor. Like there's not really a chance he doesn't win it. So just kind of what's he gonna win it for? Um,
So I wanted to, not to
oh, you're fine.
go back too far, but it's interesting that Qui-Gon Jinn had such a carefree mantra to an extent. Because if you go at least into Legends, it's kind of fucked up what happens with him. Before he had Obi-Wan, he had another apprentice who fell to the dark side,
Hmm.
and his name is, it starts with an X, Xanatros or something like that. And he vowed to never get an apprentice again. And then he found Obi-Wan was like, well, I'll do it anyway. So I have to wonder if that's why he went carefree. He was like, well, if I try too hard, maybe
Yeah.
another apprentice will fall. So I'm just gonna sit back and let this happen.
Well, and I've said too. Speaking of since we're kind of segueing a little bit to Obi-Wan, I've said too before that I always found Obi-Wan far more interesting than Anakin Skywalker. Darth Vader
Same.
I like, but I mean, as far as um, the characters in the prequels, I think Obi-Wan was one of, if not my favorite. I mean, we're talking about the movie. I would exclude, Ahsoka. Just, she was the main character in the Clone Wars, and she came back in Rebels too.
Mhm.
But I really kind of want her to get her own show. I don't know if Disney said that they're going to do that or not. Uh, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like Disney doesn't take any advice from the fans because they don't. No, you know.
I don't know. I
Oh,
think it's interesting though because it's so unfortunate with Anakin's character because they had to make him have as much teen angst as possible because he was a teenager. He was like what, 9 in episode 1, episode 2 he would have been 19, and then 3 I think like 22, 23. So I mean he was a very young guy through most of the prequels. So of course it's gonna be a little douchey. Was it a little over the top? Sure, but I think it was almost a good thing in a sense because it made Obi-Wan's character so much more likable. Even in the Clone Wars. Because Obi-Wan in the Clone Wars is such an asshole to Anakin, and I fucking love it. He is so sarcastic to him, and it's the best thing possible. Because he kind of acknowledges, like, yeah, you're kind of a douche. So I'm gonna give you shit. Hopefully, we straighten that out.
yeah, the memes with Obi-Wan are some of the greatest ever.
Oh my god, so good.
You'll see the Reddit captions and stuff like that with what like some of the stuff that he said. What was it? I'm trying to remember what he said to when Ahsoka was giving Anakin trouble, and Anakin was just kind of like, "Did you ever have this problem with the apprentices?" And Obi-Wan just kind of like stares at him. Like, yeah, no, everything's fine, Anakin.
No, no, we're fine here. Oh my god, it was some of the best writing from Clone Wars was just him.
I also love what they did with the Mandalorians too. I'm hoping so.
Yes.
Disney has apparently acknowledged um, uh, Darth Revan as a character. Um, so we will see how that um, pans out. I don't know if that means
Well,
they're.
they acknowledged Darth Bane as well, too, right?
I think they might have. I'm not
I
entirely sure.
believe in Clone Wars they did when
Well, in Rebels they go to the Sith Temple, don't they, on Korriban or whatever it is?
right the main character and Darth Maul go together,
Yeah.
but in Clone Wars, uh, Anakin goes to the planet that's pretty much the Force itself. I
Hmm.
don't remember the episode too well, to be honest. I liked the lore, but it was to be very boring 2-part episode. Unfortunately, I don't know if I knew I was binging the series at the time, so maybe I was at the point where I'm like, oh man, I watched these way too fast in order. But I'm pretty sure I remember Darth Bane's name being said, and I don't remember. You said it was during Mandalorian they mentioned Raven.
Oh no no no! So uh in one of the official Disney books about
Oh, I remember that
the
book.
background of the uh sorry 7, 8, 9.
Mm.
Kylo Ren's lightsaber is built with a fragmented crystal that comes from um the uh the homeworld of Revan, and I can't remember where it is, but yeah, they mentioned that in the book, the lore. So
Ah,
yeah, so
which is weird because at least I've played the Old Republic, but I'm not really big on MMOs. But it was Star Wars, so
I gotcha.
I played through a good chunk of this one of the Seth campaigns,
Hmm.
but I never played in the Darth Revan DLC. So maybe I mentioned it there, but at least in 1 and 2 of Qatar, they never mentioned his homeworld, which I'm
Yeah, they.
he's good.
I was just gonna say I have a friend that still to this day plays it. I think it's like now down to him and 3 people. Um, but I'll ask him about it for clarification. But it was definitely it had to do with Kylo Ren's lightsaber, and it was in one of the Disney lore books.
Hmm.
Um, actually, yeah, we could probably look it up.
That's what I'm doing right now. Let's see.
Saber. Oh wait, no, no. What would what? How do we?
I found the screenshot.
Um,
I think that's what it's talking about. Oh, it mentions the Great Scourge of Malachor, which is interesting because Malachor is I don't know. It's been so long since I I I haven't replayed Qatar 1 and 2 in so long because I I played them so much. I remember more so the first one than the second one, but I remember each single level in order what happens. Not so much story wise, but like everywhere you go, and it's too fresh in my mind. We want to play again. Yeah,
yeah.
Malachor 5. That's right. You go there. Actually, oh, that's right. They go there in uh, Rebels. I don't know if that's exactly what it's
That
referring to
doesn't.
because it says the Great Scourge of Malachor. Huh.
I think we're looking at the same article.
I think so, yeah. What is the Great Scourge of Malachor? No one knows for sure because that's the first we've heard of it. Oh, that's fantastic. Rifling through Star Wars history, there's only one of it, I believe it can be. Revan using the mass shadow generator above the planet Malachor 5. Right, which they reference in Rebels. Huh.
Right. There it is. There it is. Yeah, that's is the paragraph. Yeah, there in the corner is the paragraph about Ren's lightsaber. Yeah. Okay.
Hmm. I mean, at the end of the day, they might have just put in the reference just to have the reference in there and have
I
people.
think it gives them. I think it gives them an in and an out if they
Hmm.
if they want to explore a Darth Revan series, they can. I think it would. I hope it would be done well, but I think a lot of it would sell on just people being interested on it in it. Um, alone. But let's not get three directors to direct a trilogy this time.
Makes me so angry. It
Uh,
just I liken it to imagine Lord of the Rings trilogy.
mhm.
And I'm not exactly the biggest Peter Jackson fanboy. I think he struck gold with Lord of the Rings, but if you look at anything else he's done, it's like, you really got lucky with Lord of the Rings, I think. Had they though used three different directors, that probably would have ended up being the same quality as the Star Wars sequels, I think.
Yeah. Well,
Because you have to have that consistency.
we'll know with the Amazon series. So
I saw what was it? I saw an article where it was talking about the Amazon series potentially having like sex scenes and stuff, and there was a meme attached to it with Boromir going, "Lord of the Rings has no sex scenes. Lord of the Rings needs no sex scenes." And I'm just like, please just don't try to be a carbon copy of Game of Thrones.
yeah, yeah,
There's no need. Like, be your own thing. Which I understand. That's what Amazon is going for. They want to have a successful series like Game of Thrones, make them a fuck ton of money. But it's really not necessary at all to
I
tell a good story.
I'm gonna be honest. I feel like at the end, Game of Thrones would have liked a successful series like Game of Thrones.
Mm.
uh,
I've got on my podcast, I've gone into so many rants about the final season of uh of Game of
if you
Thrones.
if
And
you look really closely at the final season, like really closely, you can see in the background, um, you can see George R. R. Martin running away with a giant sack of money.
the crazy thing though is to at least George's, I guess, credit, they stopped using his material, I believe, season 5 or season 6. So that by that point, the two directors, creators, whatever you want to call them, were going with what they thought would be good. And of course, they, I guess, consulted with George. But in his words, he pretty much said, that's one way to do it. It's not how I'm going to do it, but hey, it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. I'm like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
I don't like George R. R. Martin very much at all. It's like with Elden Ring, that interview he gave during E3, where he's like, "Oh, I'm not a gamer, but yeah, I heard it's going to be a Dark Souls sequel." I'm like,
You don't know anything about this.
"This is Dark Souls. What is wrong with you?" It just, and then he said he hadn't worked on it in like 6 years. I'm like, "Why are you saying these things?" I don't want to be like stay in your lane, but I don't like the idea of someone that's not a gamer working on video games.
Well,
That's so asinine to me.
there I wouldn't say it's the attitude of stay in your lane, but I think that there's something, and you try not to get, I'm not talking about you personally, I'm just talking about as fans, we try not to get upset or bitter when you have, it's just like, I'll go back to when I said at the beginning about Iko Kawas and Yu Yu Rahane. I know who they are, these two amazing action martial arts stars, and you relegated them to cannon fodder in
Right,
a
right,
in a 3-minute cameo. And
right.
to me, knowing who they are, like that just absolutely, the Peter Griffin, grinds my gears. It aggravates me because I know what potential was lost on that, and you have really no excuse. I mean, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to them, but it's not like they were. I mean, that film was still more of a niche film. It's not like, you were having a big draw by advertising that they were in Star Wars. Like you literally just put them in there to not use them. So, but you see stuff like that. Like I remember when CM Punk, um, when he got out of the WWE, and I don't know how familiar you are with pro wrestling, but um, when he got out,
Vaguely, vaguely.
okay, when he got out of WWE, Marvel approached him to write Thor comics. Well, what the hell does he know about Thor? Just because he says clobbering time, a Fantastic Four reference, just because he says clobbering time, like when he's walking up the ramp, doesn't make him an authority on writing comic books. And just being a fan does not make you an authority on writing comic books.
Didn't
Uh,
he also go on to have like a really, really not great MMA career too?
that's a nice way to put it. He got his ass beat. One,
I,
he got his ass
I,
beat by a rookie, but a rookie who
mm,
was really good, and then he got his
right.
ass beat by like a guy who was like I don't want to say a no-name veteran, but they could have picked one of the camera dudes from the back, and it would have been just as a build-up. Yeah,
So with wrestling, it was relatively popular in my middle school. So like for a month, I followed along, and then I got it wasn't my cup of tea. But I remember, I'm pretty sure CM Punk was there with ECW at that time, if
yeah,
I
he
remember.
was. Yeah,
Okay, yeah. And then I remember like DX, obviously. So from that very, very brief time I had watching it, if I saw like on Yahoo.com or something, article with that person being named, I'm like, all right, yeah, keep it up to. And I saw CM Punk, I'm like, oh, honey, no. You
yeah,
get your ass kicked, like you said.
yeah. Well, I mean, people like Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley and these dudes had legit collegiate wrestling backgrounds and stuff. Like they were athletes beforehand. CM Punk was a guy who jumped off a ladder into a table. And like that doesn't give you any, so he went into it like at 36, 37 with injuries, no fighting experience. I mean, what it reminded me of, and I'm not even joking about this, it reminded me of that MTV show way back in the day where they took like people that wanted to like do something like that they had never done it before. Like one kid wanted to be a bodybuilder, and so he got like a personal trainer slash strength coach, and they turned him into a bodybuilder so that he could compete. Like they basically had a show planned out 9 weeks later. I mean, I don't want to be mean here, but like it was more about them being able to do something, I guess, than attempt to do something than them actually being successful about it, because I don't think any of them were ever like super successful with what they did. Like one wanted to start a band and all this stuff.
Right.
Um, but that's what it reminded me of. It almost reminded me of this scenario that somebody came to CM Punk, a 30, mid 30s, year old man, said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And and we're just gonna give him this opportunity, and he just got his ass beat. I mean,
Right.
oh, I don't know. I don't know.
You know
It's
what I forgot was coming out? Uh, Someone just sent me an email regarding my stream and everything. I completely forgot that Skyward Sword comes out this month.
oh well.
So I'm sitting here, and of course I'm paying attention. Don't get me wrong, but I'm sitting here in the back of my mind going like, should I stream that? Because
Well,
it is up my repertoire, but I it's an interesting thing to me. I've always had this mindset. I don't like streaming things that everyone else is going to be streaming at the same time. You know what I mean?
right.
But I also never got to play Skyward Sword, and I'm a huge Zelda fan. So it's like maybe I should break the rule just this once. I don't know. Is it full price? That's also a big thing. Zelda, uh, Skyward Sword.
Well, thankfully you saved us, because we were going. I was going to keep going with this. I was like, yeah, we're talking about Star Wars and wrestling and all that.
I
Uh,
don't. I don't mind, man. I don't mind at all.
yeah,
By any
with
means.
going back to it though, with like content creation, what made you decide that you didn't want to like play what everybody else was kind of playing?
I get really bored with BRs, truth be told. And
Battle royals.
yeah, exactly. And that's what's popular on Twitch, and I just get burnt out so easily. And I think the number one rule as a content creator is if you're not having fun with the game, don't stream it because people can tell you're not having fun.
Yeah.
Unless you're an amazing actor, and I am not an amazing actor by any
Overwatch.
means.
Yeah, Overwatch for me.
I also got burned out on Overwatch. Granted, I'm not really big on CS:GO type games either. To be fair, well, more so I'm just really bad at them. But I think I just got burnt out on multiplayer games in general, to an extent. By the way, Skyward Sword is full price.
It's, well, it is Nintendo.
No, it is. I mean, it's like, do I really want to? You know what? I just bought my wife. I just bought my wife Pokemon Snap, the new one. So my justification to her is gonna be like, I just bought you a game, so don't I deserve to buy me a game now? So I'm about to buy it right now.
And how often does that work? No, I understand.
Oh, she makes the rules here, 100%.
Yeah.
I spent $90 on a statue last night. She's like, "Can you still get a refund?" I'm like, I mean, probably. She just goes back to sleep. I'm like, oh, I won.
We'll call it's a moral victory.
No, but like it is cool as hell looking. So it's a Pokemon one, right?
Okay.
And it's a original Game Boy. It's all part of one statue, right? Original Game Boy with a Pikachu popping out, and then above that a Game Boy Advance with a Charizard popping out. It looks so cool, and I'm so excited to get it.
That's awesome. Um, I like that emote, the Chiefs crown.
Yes. What's up, Proto?
Um, yeah, no, I completely agree with the two sentiments that you shared there. And one that if you're not having fun, don't force yourself. To
I see it all the time.
I get, one of the things that, because not to take the conversation in this direction, but as somebody that's had depression for quite a while and all that stuff, I don't want to make things more difficult on myself by
Right.
being in in like Overwatch and all that. And Overwatch, I've said this before, I've met amazing people through Overwatch, but overall the community is just a crap hole.
I've always heard really bad things with.
It
Well, I
is.
mean, I think to an extent you can say that about most communities. Like anytime I hear about the Overwatch community, the Dead by Daylight community, the Super Smash Bros. Community of all things, which
Yeah.
I
I,
heard that I'm like,
I,
they
I
have a community?
we won't go into it because it's getting into legality and stuff like that. But I've
Oh,
heard
well, yeah, you're
I've
right.
heard more. I've heard more than just people are jerks in the Smash Brothers community. I've heard that
Yeah,
there
there's
are
been some
some.
fucked up things.
Yeah, I've heard that there's some people that should probably
Be in
be in
jail.
jail.
No,
Yeah,
you're right. I
be
forgot
in
about
jail.
that.
Um, but like with Overwatch, it was just it just I was watching a friend play earlier, and for those of you who don't know, in Overwatch you can switch your characters, and he just asked, he's like, "Hey, I don't think that this team comp that we have is going to work." Oh my God, you would have thought he was going to get twit longered right then and there, and that's all he said. And just there's so many, um, I don't know, narcissistic like frail egos in that
I
game.
see that.
And the issue is too, since you mentioned Dead by Daylight, I think there's also an issue too with when the game is on the decline, and people start making a mass exodus from it. Typically, the people who want to have a positive mindset and keep their community positive, they're going to be, in my opinion, the first ones to leave because they don't want all that negativity spreading. And so they're going to leave, and then you're going to be left with, and and that makes it amplified. Not that those people weren't always in the community, but when there were other players, you had less of a chance of seeing them. So I think that is, definitely an issue. But the other sentiment that you shared is trying to, go against the grain, do things different. When you came to Twitch and first started streaming, were you trying to like do things with the battle royales and trying to?
Yes.
Okay.
So when I first started, I played Warzone, and oddly enough, Fallout 76, because I finally, because I'm such a big fan of Fallout. I finally said, you know what? I've never played it. Maybe if I try it out, it'll be fine and dandy. But of course, it was really terrible. I started out with those games, and I finally played Fortnite. I actually streamed that a lot. I played. I was almost essentially a Fall Guy streamer for a little while when I first
Okay.
started. I played Fall. I streamed Fall Guys a lot. Which it just came out and it was a popular game, so I definitely got some viewer retention from it. So I don't have any regrets about it, but I just I don't like the thought of the same. I don't want to say outcome, but the same situation reoccurring so much.
Right.
It has to be fresh for me. I also have a thing where I can't replay games uh, unless it's been 8 years or more, probably. It has to be
Okay.
a long time before I can replay a game. Much like movies, I can't rewatch the same movie unless it's like one of my all-time favorites. I just I get bored. I do. I do. The example I always give is when Fallout 4 came out on the Xbox, it came with a free copy of Fallout 3. Um, and I think about 8, 9 years have passed since Fallout 3's release. So I was able to play it because didn't remember much about it.
Now, with kind of going off of that, so what is it that you look for in a game as a core aspect, like that's a draw for you? If you're not looking for multiplayer or anything, that is it more about story-driven games or
I think so. I think
okay,
so. I think it has to have a really good game. Sorry, I'm trying to put my password for Best Buy, and it's like, for some reason, I've always been the guy that's done simplistic passwords, but for some reason, I put like 20 different numbers in this. But yeah, story-driven games, and I think that's why I'm on this weird RPG kick right now. I just I like a lot of depth to a story. If it's a shallow story, I think the only way you can get away with a shallow story is if it's a humorous game. For example, one game I loved, even though it was very flawed on the Xbox because the frame rate was atrocious on it, was the Deadpool video game.
okay,
Such a relatively short game and not much to it. I mean, it was a hack and slash game. It was a button masher, but it was so fucking funny. And Noah North voiced Deadpool, and I love
okay.
Noah North. So games like that, if it's got good humor to it, I can get away with it. But otherwise, I've never been one to say that a game has to have a certain link to it. I don't believe that at all. I think that uh, valuing a game by its amount of hours can be, I don't want to say naive, but naive, yeah. Just because I would rather a game be 30 hours and have almost no filler versus a game that's 100 hours and 70% of it is filler. Because at that point, I'm just wasting my time. And I think that's such an important thing when it comes to single player games in general. It has to have good side missions. I am, for being such a big Zelda fan, my biggest critique of Breath of the Wild, well, I have a lot of critiques about Breath of the Wild. Uh, the side missions are atrocious for the most part. They're really boring, shallow, and mainly from what I remember, fetch quests. And that's a huge deal to me, especially because I don't think the main story was that intriguing. Um, I just and I haven't played it yet, mind you, but Cyberpunk, from my understanding, uh, the side quests are once again terrible, and the main story is not that great. So, if anything, another example would be Fallout 4. I mentioned very poor main story, obvious plot twists, but it had some good lore hidden away here and there. To where I essentially 100% of the map. So I kept playing because there was interesting things to find. So that's usually the saving grace behind a game. Now, was Fallout 4 a good game? Not really. It was an average game. But because the way the game is structured, I kept wanting to come back and be like, all right, so that sucked, but around this corner maybe it won't. You know what I mean?
I think that, and I do get exactly what you're saying. I think it also matters too what, and I think Steam is one of the biggest culprits of this. I think it's now when we go to buy a game, we know almost meticulously and almost to a fault, open world, RPG, simulator, etc., etc. We're looking for those categories now. And I think when you go get a game that's like open world, you're expecting more of those side missions, more off the beaten trail type of stuff. Whereas if you go get an action game, you're looking for, I not to be cliche, but I mean you're looking for almost nonstop action. I mean you're
Sure.
looking
No, I
for,
mean,
push through like a Doom game or something, right?
I
You
was
don't,
actually
yeah,
about to say Doom Eternal is the perfect example.
yeah.
I haven't gotten to play it yet, but from what the little I've watched from my buddies telling me about it, it doesn't have a award-winning plot, but the gameplay is so fun and mindless. It gets away with it. To your point,
No, I mean, and the plot's basically narrated by like a, heavy death metal like singer. It's kind of, I mean, is da, 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 the Dark Lord. It's just like this whole like it's almost in a way the game doesn't take itself seriously. I think the game, they don't take it seriously anymore, and so it's become a level of ridiculousness that you could almost
love when
appreciate.
games
Yeah,
don't take themselves too serious.
yeah.
One of the big things from E3 and Proto, who's one of my mods, if he's still here, we talked about this because we're both very big fans of the Outer Worlds,
Oh, okay.
Obsidian. Now, not like an all class game, but Obsidian's fantastic at world building, much like Fallout New Vegas. I loved the E3 trailer that just made fun of cliche game trailers that don't have any kind of gameplay. It's it felt very like it was just making fun of developers, really. But it was refreshing in the sense that what was it? One of the things was in this shot, you see this man running in slow motion. So you know this game is going to be worth the $60 asking price, or some shit like
Yeah.
that. I'm just like, I'm here for it.
I yeah, I think awareness of tropes and of, if you want to say, almost like shortcomings of certain genres, I think is a, it's almost like that Shaun of the Dead type thing, right? Um, it's always a great thing to see, and then if they follow up on it and handling it well, like I think one of the funniest quests is a fetch quest in The Witcher 2. Um,
Oh my god, which one? I love The Witcher 2.
oh,
No
it's
one's I've never no one I don't mean to cut you off.
oh, you're fine.
No one's ever played The Witcher 2, so I love any chance to get to talk about the game.
It's if I'm trying to remember correctly, it's the fetch quest with the troll, and I can't remember. It's like the drunken retrace of the steps and all that stuff.
I vaguely remember what
Yeah,
you're talking
which
about.
it reminds
Mhm.
me of, since it's more fresh in my memory since I'm doing a Skyrim playthrough of, in Skyrim, when you run into Sam at the tavern and you have a drinking contest, and then you wake up and you married a goat apparently, and you have to oh no, what was it? No, you stole, no, you were going to marry a hag raven, but you stole a goat as like a wedding gift or something like that, and then you have to like retrace your steps and all this stuff, and he turns out he's like the Daedric Lord of like frat parties essentially. I don't
Right,
know.
right, right.
He's got a more hyperbolic title than that, but
Sure,
that's
sure.
essentially what it boils down to. And I always love quests like that that were just so ridiculous that they didn't want you to take it seriously in any way, shape, or form. It,
I agree, I agree. And I think that's one of the fantastic things about Bethesda particularly in the Fallout and Elder Scrolls series, they don't have any problems with having those missions that are just outlandish. Like, why are they here? And the reason is because they don't want you to feel like the game's getting stagnant in the sense that every mission is very similar. If you have a mission where your character is high as hell, well, okay, so this was the Obsidian, but still same series as Fallout and New Vegas. You, so I believe one of the DLCs I played, I think it was Honest Hearts. You take I think it's essentially peyote, and you go hunting for a bear that's on fire and go kill it. It's fucking ridiculous, but it works so well because it it almost breaks the immersion, but not completely. You're like, oh, okay, this is way too much. It's enough to be like, I believe that there's peyote in this world.
Oh yeah, was it Moon Sugar
Why?
and Skyrim?
Right? Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I buy this. You're taking it back, but it's not to the point where like, oh wait, I'm playing a video game. You're still locked into the immersion, but you buy into it.
Oh yeah. What I do have to ask you. I think having seen your stream, I might know the answer, but I'm gonna assume that I don't. What is your take on horror games?
Oh man, I'm such a little bitch when it comes to horror games. I get scared very easily. Um, in fact, the only series of horror games I've played on stream was Dead Space,
Okay.
and which was unfortunate because like the first game, we had a jump scare counter going. It was
Heart monitor or
fun.
something.
I I I don't. I'm too lazy for heart monitors. Anything like even the scare jump counter my mods had to do. In fact, at one point we couldn't get to work, so I text one of my streaming buddies. I'm like, hey, if I make you mod real quick, will you fix this for us? Because he gave me the idea, so it shows how fucking lazy I am. The unfortunate thing with Dead Space though was, as you might know, as the series goes on, it gets less and less spoopy and more action based.
Yeah, it's
So that
the
was
I call it the alien dynamic, where the first Alien was all horror, all
very good comparison. Yes.
all just complete scare factor, and then Aliens 2 was literally like game over, man. It's thank you, buddy. Yeah, I forget. Rest in peace. But yeah, it was. I mean, it just went straight action.
Right.
Almost. I mean, there were a few creepy elements to it, but as the series went on, it got more progressively action based, more ridiculous, as opposed to that just you know, it's a squad of Marines taking on an entire hive. When you go back to um, Alien, it's I can't remember if they were a salvage crew or a mining crew. I can't remember exactly what it was that they specialized in. Not Marines at all. And that's
Right.
why I've always said to me that it's not just the atmosphere, it's uh, the story surrounding the protagonist that makes Silent Hill way better than Resident Evil. I
I can
do
see that.
I do love Resident Evil. Don't get me wrong.
Sure. Sure.
I
Sure.
do love Resident Evil. And I'm a huge fan of 7 and 8, and I'm super happy that they tried something to. And Resident Evil, I think more than any game in series in history, has tried numerous things and been successful with them. They did the over the shoulder, quick time event type stuff with 4,
Mhm.
and they reinvented their series, and they came back and they had the remaster versions of um, 1, then they introduced 0 and all this stuff, and they went back to that fixed camera angle, but they added new things to it, and they finally got voice
Sure.
actors who sounded like they were humans. They weren't bots in a
Albertson.
bots in a wax museum. um, and now they're doing first person, and I think that what I respect a lot about 7 and 8, and I haven't actually gotten to say this. I respect that 7 and 8 are horror games that are first person that did not feel like ripoffs of PT. The
I
silent,
love that so much.
yeah, The,
Me and my wife were talking about that the other day, and I think we use the exact same comparison. 100% agree.
yeah, because which by the way, I don't want to hijack this, but I will never forgive Konami for pulling Hideo Kojima off that because Silent Hills, I mean, was shaping up because you not only had Hideo Kojima, which I love. You don't have to love every one of his properties, but I think there's not a more passionate um, game director in the video game industry, and I don't think there ever
Sure,
has been. Whether everything he's made is great is up for debate, but
sure.
I don't think there's any questioning that that guy loves what he does. Um,
Mhm.
and the fact that it was going to be him and Norman Reedus, and then let me make sure I got the Guillermo De Toro, who one of my favorite Pan's Labyrinth is one of my favorite films of all time,
Oh,
and
it's a good movie.
they were going to have you know uh, Guillermo de Toro co-directing and co-writing with Hideo Kojima,
Mhm.
and then Norman Reedus starring. And PT is a demo, and it literally changed the horror industry. I mean, how many knockoffs are there of it?
How many mods have there been? How many people still doing,
and,
boundary break videos?
and to this day, they're still discovering stuff about it. I think one of the things that came out about a year ago was they found out that I can't remember what the Mary or whatever the ghost's name is. Um, they found out that the way in which they got the ambiance of her voice, you hearing her voice around you, and the playing off of the shadows and stuff, she's behind you. Her model is
I
actually
remember that.
her
I
model is
remember that.
actually behind you. So these guys, when these designers, when they broke this game and they found that, they were like, "Oh, sweet baby Jesus, this thing is following you the entire time." Like, which adds
Oh
another layer of
no.
creepiness. But like that's like an Easter egg that it just makes it that much more creepier. I mean, it's almost like when you watch The Exorcist, you're like, and obviously there are aspects. I still think it's a great horror film, but there are
Sure.
aspects that have aged, poorly, just
Of
just
course.
because that's natural. But when and I think it was Netflix put out like it was a movie called like The Devil and Father. I can't remember what the guy's name was, but it was supposed to be based off the guy who was the priest that The Exorcist was based off of. And so when you add,
Hmm.
you know, religion and all that aside, when you actually add somebody telling their stories, in accordance with adding the the I guess lore behind what something happened, it makes it even cooler. And all the stuff that went into PT makes it even cooler than what even it originally appeared to be, and it was scary as hell. Um,
Right.
I don't think that they. I'm trying to think if there's something in that game that demo that I didn't like, and I don't. I mean, it was a little hard to figure out the end a little bit, the puzzle, but
Sure.
I mean, I, I mean, eventually it just became, something you could just kind of like look up, but I don't know. It was so good. Konami
And
sucks.
it's especially unfortunate as someone that did not like Death Stranding at all
Mhm.
because I I was so excited for Norman Reedus to
Oh
be the
yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
Boondock Saints, Walking Dead up until like the fourth season when I finally was like, all right, I've had enough for this. And then
You got out
I've seen
what
him
you
some
got out at
other.
the right time.
It's so funny though because I bring up the fact that I stopped watching when they left the prison, and so many people were like, "Yeah, that's when I stopped watching too." Get this season when it's gone on so much longer than that, but I feel bad for Norman Reedus because I do believe in Death Stranding. He comes off as such a bland protagonist and voice actor, um, which shocked me a little bit. I think to a degree. Now, would he have been any better in PT? It's hard to say. I mean, I've never seen him do any kind of voice acting. Maybe he's just not cut out for it. It could be, at least in my opinion.
Right.
Um, and of course, I just thought Death Stranding was boring shit regardless. But that was my one takeaway. And then I think the other really big thing was the horrid product placement with the
Yeah.
Monster Energy drinks. That almost made me. And not, I've never been one to really care about product placement because it's gonna happen. But that to me almost made me stop playing the game right then and there when you go into this dude's little apartment and you have the option to drink Monster Energy drinks, and there's no reason to, from what I recall at least, other than just to drink them.
It was almost as bad as what was it, I Robot or whatever it was, uh, with with Will Smith,
Mm.
where he was like, "Look at my Reeboks. I'm driving in my BMW, sponsored by."
I'm so happy I never noticed that because that came out when I believe I was a freshman in high school, so I wasn't really looking for that
Yeah,
as much. And truth be told, I believe I own it on DVD still, but I haven't watched it since then, even though it's a fabulous movie. Um, I'm gonna be looking out for that now, and it's probably gonna piss me off.
there you go. You're welcome. Uh, but yeah, no, I do get that. And a lot of people, called it a glorified walking simulator.
Sure.
But I think I will say what I respect about Kojima, and as far as Norman Reedus is concerned, I think that's where, because Guillermo de Toro is a guest actor in that uh, Freudian slip, game. But he did. I don't think he had anything to do with co-directing or anything like that. And maybe to have an actual film director who would be more knowledgeable about what somebody like Norman Reedus can and can't do. Because the
Right.
one thing I will say negative, and it's not negative to have this trait. It's negative to not have somebody around you to help rein it in. And that's that Kojima is a big dreamer. And
Right.
he wants the most the best graphics he can get, the best soundtrack, the best act. I mean, he wants everything to be as epic as possible. And I think there needs to be because it's almost like Christopher Nolan. We've seen what happens when Christopher Nolan is kind of reined in a little bit, and he is not given carte blanche to do whatever he wants. And
Right.
that's because I mean, basically, in you can see it in the Batman trilogy that he directed. In the first one, they
Right.
wanted it cut their way. DC wanted it origin story. They wanted it cut their way. He didn't have a whole lot of directorial uh, what was I going to say? Areas that
Lenience.
lenience areas he could explore. And then the second one, they were like, "Oh, okay, well, this turned out good. You can, have more lenience." And then he got it. And then the third one, they were like, "Hey, you can't screw up now. Have all the lenience, right?" So we actually see,
Interesting.
yeah, we
Okay.
actually kind of see what happens when he goes through, not enough, just right, too much, like the Goldilocks and the Three Bears almost.
Right.
Um,
Right. Right.
but I do think it's interesting to kind of have that. I think one of the most famous examples too is Ridley Scott. When Ridley Scott, because I mean, there is no more clinical definition of a hit or miss director than Ridley Scott. It's either Alien or Robin Hood. Like there is no
Oh no.
there is there, there is no in between with him. It's either Alien or Robin Hood or
Agreed.
Gladiator and Prometheus. Right? I mean,
Oh
it's
wow.
so it's there is no in between with him. But it's interesting because again, when you find out kind of the backstory of some of the stuff and find out that it's like, okay, well, the writers wanted this and he wanted this, and they kind of met a compromise, you get this over here, Alien, and then when he gets whatever he wants, you get, this over here, and you get Prometheus, and I don't
Well,
know.
and it's intriguing because if you want to go full circle with that, um, with the Star Wars sequel trilogies, and I know we're right back in Star Wars, but you have to wonder with it being a Disney product, how much creative control J.J. Abrams had with the first one. Same thing with Ryan Johnson and finally J.J. Abrams again. Was there any kind of you know restraint as far as what they could do? especially with Kathleen Kennedy as the boss, because I've heard some stories about that lady, and people do not like Kathleen Kennedy with LucasArts. They do not at all.
No,
Uh,
yeah, and I think for good reason. I think that she is, that classic definition of, you know, she she worked her way up because she was good at the business end. But as far as the actual, it's like when I worked at GameStop, right? I'm sure that the regional managers who came into our store, I'm sure that they knew the business end. I'm sure
sure.
they knew what quotas they wanted to meet and all that stuff. But when I worked at GameStop back in, the land before time, they were having us wear khakis and a button-up shirt. We looked
Oh
like
no.
we looked like we were trying to sell somebody a used car, not a video game. And I remember talking to the manager about it, and I was just like, "What's wrong with we're selling video games and consoles? Like, why are we not wearing jeans and a t-shirt?" And he was just like, "Well, corporate wants a more professional look." And sure enough, they changed it eventually. Um, but
Right.
it was just this this out of touch corporate. Yes, it looks more professional, but it's not the setting. I mean, you could have people that are working um, at fast food wear suit and tie. It's going to look more
Well,
professional,
and
but
my sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. My
oh
my mind aspect would be like, who are you trying to impress?
yeah, exactly, yeah,
Your clientele are either people our age
yeah,
or children.
yeah,
And sure, you can make the case. Well, the children's parents don't want to be there.
yeah,
I can assure you, if presuming they're not gamers, they just want to get in, get out. They don't care what you're wearing, which
yeah,
I'm sure is what you told your boss by all means.
yeah. It just seemed like I said, it seemed like we were not there to discuss video games and inform people and maybe make a sale. It looked like we were directly the minute we had an interaction with you was to sell something, and that's just what I get from Kathleen Kennedy. Is I've always gotten the impression that she is the corporate manager where she's worried about the quotas and what's going to, the toys that are going to sell and what the actors are going to look like in their action figures and all this stuff, and not so much worried about the content. It's Star Wars, it'll sell. And
Right.
that's just not, I don't, when it's something that, I care about, I'd like to at least see that same level of passion or comparable in the people that are working on it. And I just never got that impression from her. I got the impression you could have put her on a Marvel film, a Disney film. Obviously, it's Star Wars Disney owned, but like a Mickey Mouse something, the next
Right, of
Fantasia,
course.
um, and she would have looked at it the exact same way. That's just kind of the impression I always got from her from everything I read. So,
No, I agree 100%. It's uh it's so unfortunate because if you get down to the leaks, reports, whatever have you, it sounds like she was the main person that was like, yeah, fuck having a plan for this. You know what? At least from my understanding. And who put you in charge if that's the case? Like the directors aren't there to argue if how many they're going to be there. They're there to do whatever you tell them to do. Like, you want me to just direct one movie? Cool. Oh, you want me to come back and fix someone else's fuck up and probably make it even worse? Okay.
yeah, and I don't know why, and I guess we'll never know why. Um, if you wanted to take risk with how things kind of go, and that's what's so weird is that in certain areas they don't want to take risk at all. But why would you have done it with the first three introductions when people are already nervous about you as a company taking over Star Wars?
Right.
Why?
Agreed 100%.
Why would you not? And I don't mean that it had to center around the Skywalker family and all that stuff, but just the whole idea of roulette with directors just seemed like an odd thing to. I mean, Especially when here's what's so funny. I just want to say this one last thing. Especially when you were already going to have different directors for everything else. Like you had a different
Right.
director for Rogue One than you did for Solo. Then you're going to have for, The Mandalorian, then you're going to have so you're already having if your idea was to get people to experience a plethora of other directors and creators and all that stuff, you were already going to do that. So I don't know why that was the time and place to to go so out there with that.
Right. No, I agree, and I just I don't understand it. The one thing I can say though is I am a firm believer because you have a lot of people that'll say, "Hey, if George Lucas would have directed this, it would have been so bad." No, I don't believe that at all. I do think that Lucas's directing skills were very flawed in the prequels, which is funny because I was just defending the prequels. But in terms of dialogue written, they were really bad. And they're not that old of movies. So you can't say they just aged poorly. They were very poorly written dialogue um, at the time of release. And you could really make a case that it was a lot of poorly written dialogue in Return of the Jedi, even. I think it would have been a huge mistake for George Lucas to come back. Just it, there are other directors out there that should have gotten a shot. And like I said, the originally tabbed third director, I loved what I saw from the leaked screenplay. I think they should have let him go with it, but instead we got uh what was the most the one thing that when I watched the movie the third movie in theaters that made me groan so loud on accident that people looked back at me like what the hell's wrong with you? I was just like, what? When Finn says the line, "Oh, they can fly now," or whatever it's called, I'm like, are are you fucking kidding me? I'm pretty sure didn't they have a jetpack stormtrooper
Yes.
in Force Awakens?
Yes.
I just it fucking I've never gotten so offended by one little line of dialogue, a joke that's supposed to be. I think that was the one thing that really showed that Disney was trying to use MCU humor in Star Wars,
Right.
and it was a terrible idea.
Right.
Which I'm not saying that it can't have humor because surely that the originals and the prequels had humor. It just wasn't forced humor. I'm not. That's not to say that forced humor, like in the MCU, is a terrible thing because it can be pulled off very very well. Like I just tweeted because it's Fourth of July right now. The whole America's ass thing from Endgame.
Yeah.
It's
No,
fucking
I
hilarious.
like that. I like the tweet. So
Fucking
yeah.
hilarious, dude. Like there's some good humor, but there's not one thing that even made me chuckle in the new Star Wars movies.
Well, I said I was going to say the last thing, but this will be last thing. Is that the thing about humor is, and I think a lot of people it just and I listen. I am not a professional comedian, but humor is timing,
Mm.
and I'll never forget. And I know it was supposed to be funny, and I didn't laugh. There were a few like almost pity chuckles from the
Oh
audience,
no!
but it was
Like if you're at a stand-up show and
like
everyone's like,
well,
ah,
it's almost like the Jeb Bush, please clap meme,
yes,
Um, but it was when it's Force Awakens. It's the very opening. It's when Poe gets captured by Kylo Ren, and there's this serious dramatic moment, and Kylo Ren has just executed this whole village and stopped, shown how powerful he is by stopping a blast from a rifle with his force powers, and we hadn't really seen that before, and it looked awesome. And then Poe, I mean, it's not the actor's fault, but he just kills it by going, "So what do you talk now? Do I talk now? Like this clearly trying to be awkward humor, and it just was so out
It
of
reminded
place.
me of if I have any complaints from the MCU, it's Joss Whedon's attempt at humor
Yeah,
versus say like James Gunn. I would
yeah.
love, and maybe it's too tongue in cheek, but if I had to like if you gun to my head, if you had to make me
I see what
pick
you did
a
there.
mainstream
Pun, gun to my head. James Gunn.
oh no, I didn't even fucking mean to do that. If you hadn't said anything, I wouldn't even realized it. Clearly, that's the comedian in the back of my head. But if I had to pick a mainstream director out of the sea of garbage ones to do a Star Wars movie, if I saw James Gunn, I wouldn't be like, eh,
Yeah,
yeah, all right, sure. But it can't be, it can't be worse than what we got.
yeah,
It might have been a little too silly, but James, the reason why I bring up James Gunn specifically and Joss Whedon is we watched the MCU in timeline order, right?
hmm,
And which is a fantastic way, by the way. If you haven't rewatched the MCU movies in that way, Disney Plus actually has a uh, section just for that.
oh, okay,
So you don't
interesting.
have to think about it. Yeah. So we just got done. We're about to start. We just finished in game today, actually. So we finally got through all the movies. So we're almost about to be able to start on Winter Soldier and the Falcon Winter Soldier, then finally Loki.
Okay,
But we at one point in the timeline order, you go from Age of Ultron to Guardians of the Galaxy, and what I noticed is there's a distinct difference between the two humor within Age of Ultron and Guardians. In Age of Ultron, it's very awkward humor, kind of like what you mentioned. That's why I brought it up. Like well, I don't know what's gonna happen.
yeah,
That's so awful. And even to this point, you can see it in the original Avengers movie too. While in Guardians of the Galaxy, it's just fucking funny.
yeah,
It's not forced. And I'll agree with you. I felt like that was the kind of humor we got in the sequel trilogy for Star Wars was that kind of awkward, like, what are you gonna do? Like it pissed me off. And I know exactly what you're talking about at the very beginning of Force Awakens when he goes, wait, do I go? Do you go?
yeah,
You just watched genocide.
yeah. And yeah, it's just it's so it's almost like a character in a way being aware they have plot armor. Like
Yes.
I know that
Yes.
you're not going to kill me here because I'm a main character. Because no way in hell would anybody with any semblance of intelligence be like, "This is a good time to mouth off." Like, especially because it's like, I mean, not to be brutalistic about this, but from a standpoint, like, they only need your mind. I mean, he's got a lightsaber. He could take out your legs and arms, and I
Some
mean,
fucked up torture, right?
yeah,
There's only two ways that scene should have gone. And I don't know like who wrote that scene, but they're a fucking idiot.
yeah,
You either are flabbergasted to the point that you are speechless to where you don't say anything, or you are pissed off
yeah,
and you go tell him to go fuck himself. Like
yeah,
there's no like
yeah.
that's all. Oh god, it makes
And
me so
well,
angry.
and here's what's so bad too. I just want to point this out. What's so bad is they did it again. Because the opening of uh, what was it? The Last Jedi.
Mm.
The opening of the Last Jedi is Poe talking to the Admiral, and he's doing this like, oh, you're breaking up. You're like this. You know what it was? It was like an ode to or ode or throwback or
From
rip
New
off.
Hope with Han Solo.
Yeah, yeah, and
Mm.
he's trying to,
Which
the
worked.
yeah, but it was just one of those things where, like, again, it went on. It wasn't that it wasn't funny, but it went
Mm.
on for like a 2 minute gag, and at a certain point, wouldn't this guy who's an admiral, who you would assume have some, again, intelligence, wouldn't he have just been like, fuck it, and just click? and I don't have time for this. Uh,
Because other people are listening into this
yeah,
conversation being had. You're being made to look like a fucking idiot.
yeah. It would have been funny too if he would have hung up on him and been like, just out of character for Star Wars maybe a little bit. But if he would have been like, "What an asshole," and then like it goes into, you
I
know,
enjoyed that.
yeah,
I feel like because of what it was a at best an ode back to A New Hope, and
Huxley.
at worst,
I couldn't think of his. Is that his name Huxley? Or
I don't remember
it's something
honestly.
Hux. I can't remember. That was the admiral's name. Um,
But it's either they were very different deliveries because with Poe in the second movie, you could tell he's trying to rile someone up.
yeah.
He's just trying to be a
Oh,
jackass.
it was
With
Hux.
Han Solo, he really doesn't know what to say, so he's just trying to come up with anything he can. Oh no, everything's fine here. How are you? Like that's fucking funny. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's funny.
Well, and again, it's one of those things where as of the South Park, Simpsons did it. It's one of those things where original Star Wars did it better. Again, you're talking about the humor of Han Solo, but remember the scene, very famous scene, when they go to Cloud City and there's Darth Vader. The doors open up. Han Solo grabs his gun, fires at it, and Darth Vader. I don't. It's not really explained whether he just blocks it with his hand because he's a
That always
cyborg,
bothered me.
or he
That
deflected.
always bothered me.
But whatever happened transpires there. It's obvious that this is above their pay grade, and Han
Right,
Solo doesn't go. Well, I didn't expect that. I mean, it's not like this weird. It's just like this actual oh shit moment, and
right,
you give aside from the character being funny, you give actual credence to Darth Vader being a menace because the guy that's
right.
been cracking jokes, all of a sudden he's not cracking jokes anymore, and I think that that's just how you handle a lot of times in those situations. You give some actual, because I mean, if Poe is literally drive-through prank calling the guy in charge of the First Order or whatever, why am I supposed to take him as a threat? It's just I don't know. Uh,
Overall, there's a lot of bad writing.
yeah, and by the way, it wait, I don't want to mispronounce their name. Is it?
Save.
It is safe. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah,
I
save.
knew as soon as you started saying it.
Yeah, it is
I
General
got their
Hux.
name wrong. The first few times they get into my channel, I got the name wrong, and finally I was like, "All right, I need you to tell me exactly how to say the name,
Yeah.
and if I say it wrong ever again, murder me."
No.
So luckily, I finally was able to get it down.
All right. Well, don't hurt the bunny, okay? Yeah. Save. Okay. All right. Awesome. Um. Okay. I need to grab another water real quick, but I'm gonna leave
Good.
you with a question real quick. If you want to go
Sure.
over it while I'm running to grab the water, or you can wait till get back. It'll just be a minute. But one of the things that I always like to talk with people about when they come on, they talk about content creation. This has been, by the way, an awesome time getting to talk with you about Star Wars and comic book
I
and all
appreciate
stuff.
that. Same to you. Same to you, by all
Um,
means.
but when we talk about content creation, one of the things that want to focus on too is the communities. And I noticed that you have a lot of people coming in, which is awesome, and I appreciate you all being here. Like I said, um,
People, if you're from my community, fucking follow this guy, Yanni. All right, please do.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Um, when you were started building your community, right? And it's almost always somewhat of a organic process. I don't think that there's ever an artificial process to building a community
Sure.
because especially if you are who you present yourself to be, and that's if I ever had to give somebody one piece of advice that they're like, "Hey, when I stream, I don't know, am I supposed to act a certain way?" Like, no. Like you don't want to. There's already an XQC. Don't be XQC light. People want to watch XQC. He's there. They're gonna go watch him, right? You want to be who you are because that's what you are giving to people. Um, but with building your community, when this started to happen, was it a transition from the Battle Royale games or was it a carryover? Because you mentioned that you did have some retention of the viewership from when you played like Fortnite and stuff like that. But did you really start to find the focal point of your community here? I don't want to say more recently, but I think once you made that transition. And the reason I asked this question to put some context in here is that I've had the experience, and I think a lot of people have. When you play one game for so long and then you want to leave it, inevitably, what will happen? People will, stop following. They'll stop coming by because you're not putting out the content that they came there for, and that's understandable. That's just par for the course. Um, but I think that's why it's very interesting that you wanted to get into variety because it's always changing what content you're putting out. But
Right.
yet you've retained a lot of the same viewers from what I've heard you say on both your Twitter and on Twitch. You have a very close knit community. So I was just kind of wondering at what point did that start to kind of form?
Right. Well, I'll tell you what. If you don't go grab that water, I
Yep.
gotta pee anyway. So
Okay.
let's be back in like
All right.
2 seconds.
All right. All right. Let me turn the cam back on. Thank you all so much again. Perfect time.
Same thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, thank you all again, real quick. While we're gonna get into that segment. Yeah. Thank you all again for being here. And again, it's not just about coming here. I always love meeting new people. It's always a fantastic opportunity to get to, uh, especially when you know that you're bringing on guests that you're going to have stuff in common with. Then you're most likely going to have stuff in common with their community. Meeting like-minded people, especially and we won't go into detail of it, but it seems to be a very divisive world these days. It's always an awesome experience. So I really appreciate you all being here. Again, if I don't talk in chat right away or something like that, doesn't mean I don't see it. I do appreciate it. Um,
I always tell people when it comes to my podcast, it's not the same experience at all. I don't read chat at all.
you don't? Okay.
Uh, unless, well, if I see a question that I think is interesting, either pertaining to the conversation at hand or leading elsewhere, I'll
Mm-hmm.
read it. But mostly, I will kind of like what you do. I'll respond to people in chat. Otherwise, because I usually have anywhere from 4 to 8 guests, I don't.
Yeah.
If I read every little thing, I'm gonna interrupt someone, and then it doesn't flow very well.
Yeah. Well, and I always, I guess my thing is too. I always feel bad. and somebody in the community comes in, they're like, "Hey, I'm having a rough day. What's going on?" I'm like, "Okay, I don't want to. I don't want to ignore. I don't want to ignore that. So I want to at least say hi." Um,
Right.
but yeah, no, it's I don't I want to go to the question from earlier, but it's definitely something to talk about as well too. That as a content creator, it gets difficult between focusing on the content and then trying to keep up with the community as well.
Mm.
It definitely becomes, a paradigm shift that happens kind of every single stream. It seems like for certain creators. But going back to it, what was it? At what point in your content creation did you feel like you were really starting to hit a stride with the community that was forming?
I think I just was always really honest because I see a lot of creators. They will not not maybe even purposely try to promise things, but maybe even unknowingly promise things. As far as like, if you join my community or my Discord, well, you will grow alongside me, and that'll just be dandy. I'm not here to grow your channels.
Right.
And that sounds really harsh, but that's the false pretense that a lot of creators give. And I'm not here for that at all. I'm here to be an entertainer
Right.
and for people to hopefully be entertained by me. And I think that's the kind of bluntness you have to have because unfortunately people get used to that kind of thing. I just I don't know. I've always been in the mindset that if I'm honest, if I am just myself, people will like it or they won't. I I I have people come in that well, just there's plenty of stuff out there that people are accustomed going from one to a channel to another, like little mini games you can have. I'm like, I'm really lazy. I am. I'm there to kind of bullshit and give my opinions, and if people want to hear that, that's great. But if not, like me, let's talk about Star Wars. I
Right.
found that very intriguing. People want to come into my channel and talk about Star Wars. Fantastic. If people want to come in asking for what they can do with their streams, I'm probably not the guy. I don't know what I'm fucking doing.
Right.
I'm not. I'm not. I just the one fad I hate on not just Twitch, but I guess it kind of leads into Twitter and other social medias as well. I hate streamer coaches. I think it's the most asinine thing I've ever heard. People pay money to get
Yeah.
advice on Twitch.
Yeah.
And it kind of likens to what you said beforehand. Um, you can try to be XQC, but you're not going to be him because you are not individually that person.
Right.
And it can be such a misleading thing. Even like Twitch partners, they're like, I could teach you on how I grew. Yeah, but you're not that person.
Right.
It doesn't matter. Like what you do, Yanni, would not work for me in some aspects, and vice versa. That's okay. But if you think that there's a step-by-step guide, that's surely not a thing. Otherwise, there'd be a lot more famous people on Twitch.
Well, yeah, and I think that I do think that there are commonalities
Mm,
that certain streamers will have. Like
sure.
I think one that I have repeatedly said that I've been short on, have a shortcoming on, but I think having a schedule, and I don't necessarily mean that you're every day 12 to 8 that type of schedule, but
Yeah.
but saying like, hey guys, I'm not going to be there on Thursday, but Friday, I'm going to be there at 8. This is what I'm going to be streaming. I think
Sure.
stuff like that, it really, well, one, it helps to build anticipation. People are like, oh, okay, cool. I'm excited to see him. He's going to play like, never played a horror game before. He's going to play the horror game. Um, but I think that that type of stuff is a commonality that a lot of them share, and I think a lot of them share, the hours they put in, the drive, and stuff like that. But yeah, the individual experience, and I don't offer coaching or any of that advice, but to sum up what I said, I always tell people that you have something to offer that nobody else can, and that's your life experiences, your
Right.
stories, and that's what people are going to come for because if it was about the game, take again Overwatch. It's 10,000 people playing Overwatch. Why are some people successful and some people aren't? If it was about the game, wouldn't they all be successful or none of them? So it has to be more about the entertainer, the content creator, and what does the content creator and the entertainer, what do they offer, that's different from the other ones? Because if you got, like, for instance, if you wanted to watch somebody that was a pro, well, you just watch the best pro for this category, the best pro for this category, the
Right.
best, and then you wouldn't watch any of the other pros. You wouldn't watch the people that definitely weren't, pro. But again, there's people I know that were pro at Overwatch that had less viewers than people that were amateurs. Why is that? So, again, I think it comes down to what you can offer as an individual, and nobody can tell you that but you. Like, there's
Right.
no coach, no personal Twitch trainer. Like, there's no, you know,
Please don't spend money on that shit,
yeah,
y'all, if you're watching this.
yeah,
But I think go back to your original question. Just how to retain viewers going from one game to another. It's such an overstated thing, but people are watching for your personality more than anything,
right,
and that's what you really need to get to. Um, if you go from playing, let's say, Warzone to Mario,
right,
that's drastically different. And if you don't have the personality to be entertained playing both of those things equally, people aren't going to watch play Mario. At
right,
least you're going to lose a very distinct amount of people. Now, is it to say you can't get people that same number back eventually? Sure, but there is going to be a amount of time, and it's the same thing. When I moved from afternoon to nighttime, I went from 30 average viewers to 14, and that's anytime I make a drastic change, whether it's the game, the time, whatever have you, you're gonna see some kind of fluctuation. Hopefully, by the end of it, it'll be for the best. Hopefully, you get even better. But sometimes it's just like I said. If there was a roadmap, we'd all be fucking famous right now, right?
right. Well, it almost seems like if there was a roadmap, it'd just be one of those old uh like maps that like the hermits give you in like Red Dead Redemption, or just like the old Wild West, where it's literally just the dotted line and then an X and then there's like a cactus, and it's like where the hell is this?
All right.
There's cactuses everywhere. Um, so no, I do agree with what you're saying as far as the personality superseding everything. Um, with that being said, you know, because kind of going through, if we can talk about this, going through the emotional decision of it, in terms of, okay, well, I'm going to make this jump from you know Fortnite, or being battle royale streamer, to variety. I mean, there's a bit of nervousness, anticipation, I guess, with doing decisions like that.
I was kind of not to toot my own horn, but I had a decent game plan, which a lot of people thought was a dumb idea at the time, but it actually worked out for me. I had buddies would be like, "You're doing too much." I'm like, "Oh, well, I don't know. Maybe I am." That's another thing too. If you have other streamers being like, "Yeah, I don't think what you're doing is good," unless they have 1,000 people watching, tell them to go fuck themselves. Respectfully, even if it's one of your friends, like, you don't know any fucking better. I don't
Right,
care if you're averaging 30 more viewers than me. That's not a lot in the grand scheme of things.
right,
Just saying. When I first started, or at least when I first started, my schedule was mostly multiplayer game. Then I got to a point where I just couldn't do it anymore. I was tired of just multiplayer. So what I did was I had the schedule where half the stream I would start out with a multiplayer game, then the second half I would play a single player game. With the logic being, I would bring in people playing Fortnite, Warzone, one of these popular games on Twitch, and then I would keep them in with the single player, and eventually I only did single player.
okay.
So I think that's a decent way, especially if you're just starting off, to dip your toes into single player only stuff. Because realistically speaking, it's really hard to break into Twitch if you only do single player games from the get go.
Right. Okay, I see what you're saying. So, what he's talking about is a bait no, no,
Oh no, I was baiting them. I was baiting them 100%. I know what I was doing. I knew exactly what I was doing. I was not ashamed about it.
no.
I think I even vocally said that a few times. It's you know, and
Uh,
it's not like I only did the multiplayer game for like 30 minutes and then did 5 hours of single player game. Like it was pretty even. Let's say 3 hours of multiplayer, then 3 hours of single player. But if people, if we were having, let's say we're talking about Star Wars, right? During the um during Fortnite, we still talk about Star Wars during a single player game. And it goes back to my point of your personality really needs to be what dictates you, not the game you're playing.
right. Well, and also too, I have seen a lot of people that will switch around the games. And it might be that they switch around like, okay, one day we're gonna play um, Legends of Runeterra, the next day we're gonna play Magic the Gathering. There's kind of a common theme with the genre in a way, but they'll play different types just to prevent themselves from being bored. Because I think if you're going to be doing something for anywhere from 6 to 10 hours every time you stream, yeah, I think it's you. And you touched upon this earlier. I think it's imperative that you don't get bored.
Oh,
Because
it gets so evident, and you
yeah,
but you really can't help but get frustrated.
right,
I stream a lot of older games from from N64 to Xbox, whatever have you. And the nice thing about them is they're usually pretty short.
right,
But the downside is a lot of these games age really poorly too. To where the last one that was really a stickler for me was Brothers in Arms: Road to
oh
Hills
no,
Reversed. Oh, I love that series so much. It's one of my favorite all time series.
yeah,
But it is such a bad game now.
yeah,
It was so frustrating. I ended up cranking down the difficulty to easy and just trying to speed run at a certain point. But it just it's one of those things where as a creator you have to be able to make the best out of the situation.
hmm,
I think it took me like a total of 3 streams because I usually average anywhere from 3 to 5 hours a stream, so that would be pretty spot on. The second stream, I was not looking forward to streaming it, but I had the realization that one, it was a short game, and two, I just wanted to get it done because I wanted to play the next one in the series, which from the research I've done, it's going to be the exact same quality. So I'm probably going to hold off on that for a good while. Because what's crazy is, well, actually, let me finish this thought first. My second stream of it, I knew I wasn't going to have a great time. So I was just like, I'm just going to try to get through as quick as possible, joke about how terrible it is. And at one point, our little squad was met up by a tank driver. And because I was so bored, I created a story of my character and the tank driver being lovers. And just after the war was over, we were gonna go to France and live out the rest of our days, kind of thing. And it was like a 10-minute spiel. It was funny. It was probably one of my better
ad
things I've
libs.
done. Right, exactly. But then after 10 minutes, he died. And I've never been so hurt in my life. He gets blown up. I'm like, oh no. And a couple missions later, you get another tank driver. And my first reaction was, it's not the same voice actor. It's not my man's. I don't care. That's the biggest thing too, is just not taking yourself so seriously when you stream.
Just staring directly at the camera. It's too soon. I could never love again.
We had a good time with it though. We really did.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and that's the biggest thing. Like I knew for a fact watching that game was boring as shit for my audience. But because we had a good time talking shit on it, we averaged probably 14 some viewers, which for that game was impeccable. Anything more than that would have been a miracle. But I really, going into the second stream of it, I thought I was going to average like 6 viewers, but we did very, very well, all things considered, and we had a good time with it. The third stream, not as great because I was running out of things to joke about. So we just, like I said, I ran through it as fast as humanly possible, and then I set it down. And because what's crazy, I was going to say earlier, for it being a squad-based shooter, and the fact that your squad takes cover, and the fact that you yourself can't take cover, you can kneel and kind of hide behind stuff, kind of like a Call of Duty kind of first-person shooter. But in the third one, apparently, there's actually a cover-based shooter where you go from first person to third person, it's almost like going, funny enough, because I have the two things back here behind me, it's like going from Halo first-person shooter to, when you're in cover, Gears of War third person. So it's one of those things where that sounds a lot better, but in order to get to the third one, I'd have to stream the second one. So it's on the to-do list, but I don't plan on doing it anytime soon.
It brings up an interesting point, though. So you stream, like, if there's a Dead Space, well, I guess we can go back to that, Dead Space 1, 2, 3, you won't stream, like, the third one and
I don't
skip
go out
the
of
second.
order.
Okay.
I don't. There's no particular reason. Well, I will go out of order, but it so for example, let's say like The Legend of Zelda, where chronologically speaking, it's not that imperative that you do it in order, because yeah, they have callbacks, but mainly they're each individual stories. Same thing with the Grand Theft Auto series if you want to go in a completely different kind of genre.
Right, yeah.
They have Easter eggs relating back to the previous games, but they're all in
Different
themselves
stories,
separate
different
stories.
people, yeah.
Exactly. So that I'll do. Like Grand Theft Auto, I recently streamed the fourth one, and probably here soon I might go with Vice City or San Andreas. So I don't mind skipping around with that. But let's say a minor plug, by the way. This a week from now, I'm streaming the entirety of Gears of War 1 with my high school IRL best friend. So
That's awesome.
that should be fun. Yeah, no, we're gonna have a
Got
good time
the
with it.
poster in the
We
background.
yes. We grew up bonding, playing, the Gears of War multiplayer 1, 2, and 3 when we're in high school. So it's gonna be a good time. I just I wouldn't that's one of those things where I wouldn't stream like Gears of War 3 first, because I think it's very important to fully understand plots, especially if someone comes in and I have a lot of people. In fact, one of my mods, Coyote, he's never gotten to sit down and watch the Halo campaigns.
Oh, okay.
So for his sake, and I guess in the same mentality of anyone else in my community, I wouldn't want to start out with Halo 3 and be like, what the fuck's happening? I want to be able to fully explain the lore of it. So that way, if something in Halo 3 happens that is a callback to Halo 1, I can be like, yo, remember that scene in Halo 1 that happened like this? Yeah, it's like that, but kind of different over here. I want to be able to do a lot of callbacks because I think that's intriguing. And I mean, like, there are other examples of games that you don't have to, like Fallout, Elder Scrolls. There are plenty of series of games you can do out of order, but there are some that you don't think you necessarily can.
Right.
Like a Halo, Gears of War, Kingdom Hearts. I guess you could make the case of to an extent. Well, I guess that one is. No, I would still do that one in order. It just, I don't know.
No. I got what you're saying, and yeah, and well, in the case of Halo 2, Halo 1, in my opinion, is still the best. So, as far as story goes,
I gotta disagree. I think that Halo 2's was, at least for me, a better story, and a lot of people will discredit it because it had the cliffhanger ending. I didn't mind it. And maybe it was because when it came out, I believe I was in middle school, maybe a freshman in high school. When I saw when he was like, finish the fight, I'm like, I can't wait for the third one now. I want to finish the fucking fight. And it was good because it wasn't too much of a slap in the face in regards to being a cliffhanger, but also when you get down to it, it was pretty ingenious from a marketing standpoint. Because how many trailers did we see saying finish the fight and hyped up so many people? From a
Right.
just as from a selling standpoint, that's amazing marketing.
And then
But
it.
even going
I
go
was
ahead.
just gonna say. Then it turned out that like six, the SpongeBob meme. 6 games later,
Oh yeah.
we're
Yeah,
still
no,
not.
no. Then 343 took over. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I really hope Halo Infinite's good. I really do. But I'll be honest, I mentioned this not that long ago. E3's Halo Infinite multiplayer coverage at least got me excited about it. I'm like, this looks like old school Halo to an extent. I'm even to the point to where up until E3, I had zero plans to get an Xbox Series X. Since E3, I've been actually looking to see if it's available, and if I
Okay.
can pre-order it, or I'm sorry, not pre-order, but order it, I'm probably going to. Now, I'm probably also going to get the PS5, and
Okay.
in
I was gonna
fact,
ask.
well, and truth be told, it's just one of those things where if um if they were actually both available, I'd probably own them by now. But it's just one of those things, and I think it's one of those things where it's so early on in the console's lives to where right now there aren't that many exclusive games for either, especially the Xbox, the new one. There aren't enough exclusives to where it's really worth it.
Right.
The one game that I'm really excited for PlayStation 5 is Horizon Zero Dawn's sequel.
Yeah.
And I don't even know when that comes out.
Yeah. I'm excited for the sequel. I always go into sequels and prequels and all that stuff with trepidation now, just because experiences have taught me over the years. But
Right.
the first game was so good um, that I'm willing to give it a shot. And I have no reason, at this point, there's not been like a major change in casting or anything like that to where I'm like, like leery of it. But
The only thing I've seen people complain about is the main character doesn't look feminine enough. I'm like, are we all really that fucking horny? That's our first complaint. The game
I
looks
had seen
gorgeous.
I hadn't seen that.
Oh yeah, apparently her boobs aren't big enough. And I'm just, are
That's-
you fucking kidding me? Is this are we back in fucking
Dude, I had
2000 with Laura Croft's triangle titties?
I had a I had I went on a rant when I was playing Skyrim about boob armor. Because it's just like I had a friend that was into smithing, and like after he explained to me, I mean I never thought anything of it one way or another, but he was like, yeah, form-fitting armor would not be a thing because like you'd create like a giant weak spot for like the so if you
That
basically
would be my thought too.
yeah, so basically if you had all right, I'm not gonna but if you if you had like a giant indention here, if somebody just hits with a mace or a hammer,
Yeah,
in
it's
there,
gonna break the armor.
yeah. So like, you're gonna, concave your titties. So he's
Titties.
yeah. So I mean, it's the boob armor might look great now, but eventually it's not gonna hold up. So or that or was the famous I think it's more MMOs, but like the famous meme of um it was like male characters it was like male warriors in-game gear, and it was like this. His helmet was this big, and he was decked out with the pauldrons, and then it was like female warriors in-game gear, and it was like a, you know,
Bikini
yeah,
essentially.
but yeah, bikini from Leia in
I
Return
was
of,
gonna make that
yeah,
exactly.
in
I was
the
gonna
in
make the
the
same
yeah,
comparison.
and you're just sitting there thinking, wait a minute, the which Smith made.
Now there's gonna be some dudes out there that are gonna be very happy about that armor, but it's asinine to me. The one complaint about Horizon Zero Dawn's sequel is she doesn't look feminine enough.
Yeah, I
I'm sorry, it's the post-apocalyptic times. Who the fuck's worried about the looks?
well, and not only that, but I mean, it's one of those things where what do you define in terms of, for instance, somebody that like let's realistically, let's take a character like Nathan Drake, right? Which I love the Uncharted series and all that stuff.
Handsome son of a gun.
Yeah, but Nathan Drake also does not have the build in any way, shape, or form for half the shit that he does. I mean, Nathan
Right.
Nathan Drake, looks like I don't know, a Ralph Lauren model, but he would need like, I mean, his shoulders and forearms and all that would just be like, from
Right.
hanging
Yes.
on rocks and all that stuff for like 24/7. So I mean, there's also something to be said too when people are saying that a character doesn't look masculine enough, doesn't look feminine enough. Like what? Okay, well, realistically, what role are you expecting them to fill in a fantasy game to where they would? I mean, you know, if she's gonna run 5 miles without stopping from a giant mechanical T-Rex, like what there's going to be some leanness there. And there's got like I mean there's got are you going to say that that's too masculine, that she would have like more muscle deficit? It's so asinine, it's so stupid. I mean, play games to have fun, and people get into these tirades about you know
You got a
every
little raid if you want to introduce yourself real quick.
oh, okay.
Not a little raid. You got a raid, I should say.
No, 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 no. So, Rita, thanks so much, buddy. I I appreciate that. Yeah, Rita is one of my wonderful friends and mods. She is
Okay.
super awesome. Thank you for letting me know that. Yeah, I was going into this because it's just something that and I don't know how old you are, but when you say stuff like I played this in middle school, I kind of get a rough idea of.
About 30.
Okay, yeah.
I am 30. I
Okay.
don't know why I said about.
I'm 31, so we're the same age range. So, um, growing up with this stuff, it was always seemed like I thought it was cooler to welcome people into the nerd community than to have like some form of elitism where people were like, you can't just, if we go back to Star Wars, right? You haven't read the expanded universe, well then you're not a true fan type of thing, right? You know,
Gatekeeping.
yeah,
That's
gatekeeping.
what it
Thank you.
is.
Yeah, thank you. I couldn't think of the word for it. So, when I hear stuff like that, like I think the new Laura Croft model, I mean, yes, the old one is iconic, but it's iconic for all the wrong reasons. Um, but the new model looks better. It does, and I think that a lot of what the way that games are kind of shaping is, I don't know, this what people want to focus on and nitpick. It seems so odd sometimes. The people were given Geralt of Rivia from The Witcher. They were giving him some flack too. They were like, this dude is not conventionally attractive and he's all scarred up. I'm like, he fights dragons for a like what do you expect that like
Geralt is a very handsome man, you sons of bitches.
well, like I mean
What? Who got that? I look at him like, yeah, I can see why like these weird amount of women are attracted to him.
well, and then
And men.
they were upset because Henry Cavill, they were like, well, he's too attractive to play Geralt. I'm like, it's acting. They can make it. like they. Can, I was like, what?
I thought I mean they don't look exactly the same.
I thought he did a great job. I like
Oh,
the
he did a
series.
fantastic job.
Yeah.
I'm can't wait for the second season, but I don't think they look that vastly different.
It's I don't know. It's just like that weird, like you said, that weird form of gatekeeping, which I think is more harmful to any
Right.
community and series than anything else, and it just gets at a certain point it gets um, it goes beyond obnoxious to where it's detrimental. Like you want this community, this particular game or series or whatever to grow, but then you don't want people to like it if they don't adhere to your strict, almost testament of rules
Right.
that they have to have.
Well, it comes down to knowing the fine line of giving your opinion about something being good or bad, and then gatekeeping, telling someone else that their opinion on it is wrong or stupid.
Right.
Right. I mean, we learned this shit in fucking elementary school.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the thing.
Don't be obnoxious assholes when it's not needed. Now, me personally, we were talking about earlier. I think the Star Wars sequels are atrocious.
Right.
I think they're terrible, plot hole ridden, bad movies. Now, if someone comes up to me and says, I think they're pretty good, I'm not gonna sit there and be like, you're a fucking idiot. I might have a respectful conversation about it, be like, why do you like it? And if they're open for the debate, I'll be like, well, here's why I don't like it.
Well,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I actually have a perfect example of this. When I was talking about Fallout New Vegas, I was talking about being my favorite one, and somebody in my chat had said, "Well, it's not really my favorite," and I was like, "Okay, well, I'd like to know your opinion on why that is, because it's typically, most people consider it to be, the best in the series. So if you have a difference of opinion, I'd like to know that." And they actually, I don't necessarily agree with that opinion, but they came up with a very reasonable um, statement on it, and it was that to them, the Fallout world lost a lot of its post-apocalyptic feel when it went to New Vegas because it was like, yep, danger, destruction, mutant animals, and then Vegas, and then it just went to this shining, Emerald City from the Wizard of Oz where everything was still thriving and everything was, bustling, and it didn't feel post-apocalyptic.
I can actually respect that a ton.
Yeah,
I'll disagree with it.
yeah. And so in my argument, my counter argument to that is that the Fallout series was never supposed to be a hard, strict sci-fi, and that it was it's more
It's a
fantasy
mix of
punk.
sci-fi and
Yeah,
fantasy.
yeah,
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
and
100%.
and so they wanted to kind of show that is a dichotomy to the hopelessness of the world that they had kind of created.
Right.
And there's something to be said too about that if the world you play is all doom and gloom, why keep playing it?
Right.
If there's no hope, if there's no, possibility
And
for
I would make the argument too that I feel like if you have enough people repopulating the world after a nuclear um, apocalypse, at some point there's going to be a chance that there's a relatively big settlement, right?
right,
Especially, I think that New Vegas is such a great job of explaining how it was able to stay so relevant.
right.
It makes a lot of sense. So but at the same time, like I said, I can appreciate why that could be off-putting to some.
Yeah. Well, what I would, what it kind of reminds me of, is one of the reasons that, and this didn't occur to me till they said it, but it was one of the reasons why, and I just said it earlier, I love the Silent Hill franchise, but Homecoming, which is Silent Hill 5, the
Right.
reason it didn't resonate with me is not only was it kind of a hodgepodge ripoff of the other games made by a different studio, but the main character was, a Marine, and so he's got all this training with weapons and all this stuff, and it just seems like we went from what was it 4? He was a photojournalist. 3, teenage girl. 2, I don't remember what um, I don't remember what James Sunderland was, but I mean, he definitely wasn't a former Marine. And then
Right.
the first one, Harry was a writer, He wrote for like
Right.
brochures and stuff like. So this is what we're going to, and then all of a sudden, you know, get to the chopper, and then we just go into this, and I'm like, okay, well, you've got this, and again, that's why, respectfully speaking, it's always been kind of weird for me with Resident Evil because, I mean, you've got the ridiculousness of Resident Evil 4. Was it like Leon punches a boulder or something? I mean that obviously, that's
Always, I don't mean to cut you off. I've always likened. I think it's the reason why I let Resident Evil get away with its ridiculousness. I've always likened the story being a Hollywood horror B movie.
okay. That's
It's
fair.
fucking ridiculous, but that's to be expected with that movie. It's almost it's like, and I think it's a good time. I love really really terribly terrible on purpose spoopy campy movies like the one I
Overlord.
always think of. Oh, or even more ridiculous than that. Thanksgiving.
Oh no.
You remember that movie?
Jack. What is it? Jack Frost.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Right.
I just I love thinking of Resident Evil in that light. And Overlord is probably a better example, but I have the realization it's tongue in cheek. So and at least it's never been. I think there are other games that have really gone over the top with their protagonists not being logical and the fact that they are able to do these crazy things. Like the one example I always think of is Dead Rising 1. Frank West is a fucking journalist. However, he is a master in every single weapon possible and things that are not meant to be weapons.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. I think there are other
man picks up a motorcycle and beats people with it. Like, yeah.
superhuman strength. And I just think there are other franchises that have done it worse. Yeah, people really nitpick with Resident Evil. I'm like,
I do have to interject here real quick since you mentioned, since we're talking literally Leon Kennedy and Frank West. Do you ever watch the death battles? Have you ever seen those? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I talk about the ones from MTV.
No. The celebrity. Oh yeah, Celebrity Deathmatch. God, I love those. But no.
That's what I thought of.
No,
So
Death Battle is for those of you who haven't seen it. Would highly recommend it, though you'll probably leave like at certain points being like upset because your character didn't win. But Death Battle is they literally take characters and they put them against each other. The most famous series they did was Goku versus Superman, which got everybody pissed. But um, they did Frank West versus Leon Kennedy, and
really,
yeah, and I'll YouTube link it. But they try to be somewhat almost MythBuster scientific with it. Like they actually take like what Frank's like greatest strength achievement was versus Kennedy's, et cetera, like what their experience is. So like,
oh, I
Kennedy.
found it.
Yeah, yeah,
Huh.
yeah. I would definitely recommend taking a look at that. They do a lot of cool stuff. Um, I think they did like He-Man versus Lionel from Thundercats. Um, they do Batman versus Spider-Man. I think they did. Like they do a lot of cool stuff like that. Naruto versus Ichigo Kurosaki from Bleach. Um, so it definitely obviously don't take it seriously, but I mean it's definitely a fun series to watch.
Well, and I skipped through it a little bit just to go like frame by frame. It looks like they go into a lot of lore and not for each character,
they do, yeah.
but also comparing and contrasting. So I think that's interesting. Now, at the end of the day, who you pick might not be who you think is going to win, but I mean, it's subjective shit. You know what I mean? Like it's their opinion.
Yeah.
I'm going to go watch it.
Yeah,
Honestly,
no, it's definitely a cool series to watch. Um, so Man, I feel like we're gonna have to do a. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like we're gonna have to do a part two at some.
I'd be down for that. I'm having a good time, man.
So, I do kind of want to get just a little bit back to the content creation before we go into the in the Q&A.
Sure.
Um, so you've kind of you talked about going from um, I don't did you say mornings or afternoons to
I went
evenings?
from afternoons to late evenings.
Okay. Um, when you decided to do that, were there any other type of changes that you decided to make or that you have going forward that you'd like to do?
So
Doesn't have to be
a
in
little,
regards to schedule, to clarify.
that's fair enough. So the reason why I changed from afternoons to late evenings because I had a kid and everything, and to avoid paying for daycare, I'm gonna watch her uh, during the day while my wife is at work. Then I stream late at night. Of course, the lack of sleep is gonna suck, but uh, beyond that, though, I went ahead and because I've been doing Monday through Saturday for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Right now that I'm a parent and everything, I took Mondays away.
Okay.
And I mentioned beforehand that with my podcast on Saturdays, I am probably we will be going on hiatus for that, starting at the start of August. Give it a break, then start with the. I think I'm gonna end up having it be like the third season because I think we are 45 episodes in, so it's gonna be kind of
Nice.
wonky to split it up. I'm probably gonna split up because I have a co-host and everything. I'm probably gonna split up to when he came on, which he came on like 10 episodes in, so it's gonna be one. I'm gonna figure out some way to split it up, and who knows, maybe I'll even do 3 seasons total. But that leaves a vacant spot in my schedule on Saturdays, and I'm debating on if during that time if I want to do something different or do I want to have that as an off date between the different seasons because the seasons are probably going to last about oh I'm envisioning in my mind at least 2 months probably.
Okay.
On one side, one less day is more time for me to recoup. On the other side of things, if people are used to you being live on Saturday nights, you lose that momentum, so to speak. So
Right.
when you get back from pod or when the podcast gets back, you don't want to lose that. So that's still something that's ongoing in my mind. I've got until, like I said, the end of this month to decide. So yeah, I'm gonna wing it kind of thing.
Okay. Um, and so is your goal to push for partner?
Yes,
Okay. Okay.
it's what I do full time. That's the game plan. Um, had I, and I don't want to sound overly confident, had I not switched from afternoons, I probably would have been on the same trajectory to hit partner. Um, because I was averaging 30 for the last month. I was uh, in afternoons. Then I was, if I did the math correctly in my head, at least with the charts on like TwitchTracker.com,
Mm-hmm.
it would have gotten higher and higher. Now that I'm in the evenings, it's a little bit harder. But the biggest thing when it comes to being a creator is just don't give up.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen people make it streaming at midnight, 3 in the morning, 6 in the afternoon. You just got to stream, I think the
There are
same.
so many time zones in the world
Yeah. Um,
to where it's going to be like to your point, it might be 3 a.m. for you, but it might be someone's 7 p.m.
yeah.
to where they need to watch something after dinner. You know,
And I think that, not giving up because, it can get difficult. I mean, I've had my ups and downs when I was playing Remnant from the Ashes. My stream was growing.
oh,
Uh,
I heard that game is really fucking difficult.
it was, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I was one of the best at it. I mean, when
Wow.
they had a survival mode, and there was only one guy that was really, um, consistently beating me, and I give him credit. He was the better player at it, but I was very good at the game. And so when it came out, it just so happened that I was playing it because I enjoyed it. And I was like, I didn't know what, I switched from Overwatch. I was like, I didn't know what else to play. And I was playing this, and then people started to come in asking about it, and like, hey, how do you beat this boss? And I'm sitting there running around the hardest difficulty with no armor, and I'm like, oh, well, you just stand here and they can't hit you and all this stuff. And then people were like coming back and all that, and then I found out that they were, like for a guy that really liked the game, I didn't keep up with the news about it. They were releasing the final story patch, the DLC, everything, and there was all this big buzz around it because I think people like Shroud had played it, um, and that so of course it garnered a lot of attention, and it was really awesome. And then of course the game died down, and I've been trying to build back since. But yeah, I think not giving up, I think is crucial because you're definitely going to have ups and downs. I think a lot of people saw. I don't want to say inflated numbers because that's just not only is that discouraging, but that's also kind of disrespectful to people. But I think a lot of people when
They
COVID,
were.
yeah,
And I'll be the one. They were inflated numbers
yeah,
from the pandemic. They
yeah,
were.
um,
They had a lot more people at home, and that's not a bad thing
yeah,
because it certainly helped jumpstart a lot of people's career trajectory on the platform, whether that's going to end up being partner or not. Now, are you going to see most people fall back down to earth? Yes, you will. I have a partner buddy of mine that averages up until the last month or two, he was averaging about 100. He fell back all the way down to like 60.
okay,
And he didn't do anything wrong. He didn't say anything he should have said. It's just he had a younger fan base, and now they can go back outside and go to their friends' houses.
yeah,
It's just, and then of course, with adults, they go back to work. That's the reality of things, and it's gonna suck. But I can promise you, if you can make it through the summer, when people aren't on vacation right now, aren't going out as much, especially during the colder months, it'll hopefully get better. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, yeah, that's gonna get so much better. It could get worse. I don't know. That's just hopefulness, right?
well, yeah, and I think it's a lot like the movie seasons too. I mean, there's particular parts of the year where the movie season they're like, all right, we're throwing in the trash films into this month because like it's just not projected to be, big movie
I
season.
think with gaming, I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah, for sure.
And I think with Twitch, I think that's right. Um, you're gonna have to kind of weather that storm. But I think a lot of people don't understand too that like with other forms of entertainment, you're vying for people's attention, from Netflix,
Right.
from the movies, from the games themselves. But one of the things that Twitch, especially smaller content creators, have over all that stuff is interaction. I can't
Right.
ask J.J. Abrams, what the hell were you thinking with Star Wars? You know,
God, I wish I could.
yeah, I can't like go, to the director's cut of Star Wars and just like type in, there's like a live chat off to the side. And I type in like WTF with, you know, so that's a unique experience that they don't get from watching ESPN or Netflix or
Right.
Disney Plus or all that stuff.
And I think that's such a good way to put it because people stress out, and it's such a cliche thing now because streamer Twitter makes everything cliche. Same thing with
Right.
streamer TikTok. People worry so much about them having regulars, and then those regulars never come back.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Did I do something wrong?" I'm like, no. Imagine, imagine watching, like, let's say, like one of my favorite all time shows is Scrubs. I love fucking Scrubs. I do.
Right.
Let's say that show was still ongoing. After a long period of time, I'm probably going to get tired of it, especially if I watch regularly. Or it's like, imagine if the NFL went all year round and every single Sunday you go watch football. At some point, arguably, you might get a little tired of it. People's tastes change too.
Right.
Or, unfortunately, like we talked about beforehand, if you switch games. Unfortunately, if all right, okay, I'll give you the example. One of the games I cannot stand watching on Twitch is Dead by Daylight. I don't care if you're one of my best good buddies or if you are the most entertaining person in the world. I will not sit there and watch you play Dead by Daylight. And I know, we said oh, well, personality matters. It does. But if I give absolutely nothing, a care in the world about the game you're playing, even to the smallest extent, I'm not going to watch it.
And
So I think there is a little bit, let's say it's 80% personality, 20% game.
right. Well, yeah. I mean, I think that if you again going back to that steakhouse analogy, I mean, I think that if you're the best grill master in the world, and like you're a super cool dude, but you start serving like I don't know, pizza, and I wanted a steak, like I don't, I might not come back because damn it, why'd you switch? Like, but so I mean, it does happen, and I think it's hard too from just being open about it. I think it's hard too from an emotional standpoint because a lot of streamers will talk about like, oh, I don't, build a connection with my chat. I don't build a connection with my community. I keep them at arm's length and all that stuff. That's how they run things. It's not how I choose to run things. And everybody's allowed to run their stream how they want to.
Agreed.
But I feel like it's hard when you see the same people all the time and you get to know about them and their lives and what's going on. Now, the internet, you never know how completely truthful somebody's being.
Right.
But, if you do, some of the stories that people tell, might resonate with you. Like again, if somebody's struggling with depression or something like that, It's hard not to take an investment, and when people stop coming, especially if you know that they're going. I tell you, the hardest thing is when somebody's going through something, and then just one day they stop talking to you. You're like, or coming by the stream, and you don't see them in anybody else's stream. You're just like, I hope that nothing happened, because that is a concern, I think, in some
Sure.
instances.
It's just like the people you played Xbox Live with when 15 years ago, and you haven't heard from in 10 years, and you're just wondering could happen. I think Twitch is such an interesting thing because during your Twitch career, 3 months can feel like 10 years. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because it's just so much can happen that period of time. You have so many different people coming in. It's crazy the experiences you can feel in such a short amount of time.
I think, yeah, I think it's a very, not in a bad way, but a very volatile
Right.
occupation. You're going to
Sure.
have periods of booming. You're going to have periods where, you know, um, where it fall. I mean, it's so funny too. There's people that actually will say that like, oh, Ninja's down bad because he's not on Good Morning America every other day. You know, the man still averages what, 8 to 12,000 viewers or whatever. Or more. I don't know, but I mean, he's doing fine. I promise. I promise he's doing fine.
The argument people make is the fact that he's not doing Fortnite anymore. To my knowledge, I don't like the guy. I don't watch the guy. I think he's
Yeah.
very pretentious, but that's my opinion.
Yeah.
If you like him, that's just well and good.
I
I
I've said it before. I don't go to a lot of the big streamers, not because I don't have anything against them, but I don't want to be in what I call the Matrix chat, where it's just side scrolling, endless gibberish to
I
where,
mean that's why that's one of the big things people watch streamers for, right? Because they
yeah,
want that personal connection. If it's like if I wanted to watch Markiplier, I would probably watch him on YouTube versus on Twitch because, and even if I was watching him on Twitch, because to your points, I wouldn't waste my time in typing something because there's a 0.0001 percentage chance of him seeing
yeah. Um,
it.
and then of course, the one time that you meme or something, that's the thing that they see, and they take it out of context, and you're like, damn it. um,
Right.
yeah. I think that's kind of how I've viewed bigger streamers a lot for a long time. Again, it's not I I congratulate them on their success and keep doing what they're doing because it's obviously working. But, as far as, the game is concerned, uh, it would have to be, I would say, with respect, if I want to watch, without naming any names, if I want to watch, a bigger streamer's highlight reel, I'll go to their YouTube channel.
Agreed.
Yeah, I won't.
Agreed.
I'm not going to stay in a 10-hour stream hoping for, because despite what you might think, not you personally, but despite what people might think, it's not 10 hours of straight action and comedy. Like, their editors do a
Isn't
very
that
good
thing
job.
that the most amazing thing? Like I mentioned, Markiplier. People watch and be like, "How is he so funny all the time?" Like, because he has an editor.
Yeah, I've met. I actually had the pleasure back when I actually went to conventions. So I actually met Markiplier once,
I
and
bet he was the nicest dude in the world.
he is. No, he genuinely is a guy that like um I don't I when I say handler, I just when they're trying to organize an event or something. But he would sit there, and if it weren't for other people, like, hey, Mark, we got to go talk to these people over. He'd probably talk to you for an hour. I mean,
Oh, I wouldn't doubt that.
yeah,
I
he's
wouldn't
a
doubt that.
really really genuinely.
I would love with me and him having somewhat similar voices. I want to have a 5 minute conversation with him and just record it.
Oh, that'd be
I
hilarious.
oh my god, I would love it so much.
But he's a really good dude, really good to
Yeah,
the fans. And and I'm also happy that he's been with us considering some of the health issues that he's had because
right.
some of them are pretty serious. Like he was in the
Mm.
hospital for like intestinal obstruction or whatever. Like
I remember that.
he just
Yeah,
randomly will get
he's
like
also really fucking clumsy too.
okay, fair enough. But he
Now the intestinal shit was scary, but like
yeah
he's also like broken a bunch of shit. I'm like, how do you keep hurting yourself?
yeah it broke it.
I will fangirl about Markiplier plenty. That's like one of the only creators I think I really really do just oh gosh. And
Him
there's some other ones too, but
for me it's him and a guy that was funny somebody mentioned the other day. Um, this was actually the guy that brought me to Let's Plays through YouTube. The Rad Brad. And now a lot of people don't know about the Rad Brad, but
very remember.
The Rad Brad is a dude that he was one of the first people I watched. Um, didn't watch PewDiePie or any of that stuff, but he did the Let's
He
Plays.
did not have a camera, right?
You're right. He he's got a very bro voice. Like
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know how else to explain it, but
I remember him. I remember him. Yeah,
he
yeah.
did like Let's Plays of horror games, and I remember in particular he got so scared in one game that you just hear him go, "Ah, oh, fuck!" and you hear a sound, and he goes, "Sorry guys, I threw my chair." And that's what the sound was in the back. You heard like this bang in the background. It was him throwing his
Right.
chair. Um, and it kind of became a meme that when he was in a game with like any type of physics-based options, he'd throw a chair or something and be like, "Fuck you, chair." But no, that was kind of my introduction to that, and then of course
Mm.
I like watching John Wolfe is another good one. Um, John Wolfe is good to watch because John Wolfe doesn't really get scared that much with horror games. So
Right.
what he does, it's like a quality horror game. I guess the more critical of the critics, if you will, of horror
Mm.
games. So, but he's a genuinely good dude too. Does a ton of stuff for charity, which
You
are
know, I've always really I never really got too much into Let's Plays. Because of course I would always want to play it myself.
right.
Uh but Markiplier was definitely the one if there was like a PC game I couldn't play, I would watch him. But I always really have loved lore based content. There was one dude, the Epic Nate 315,
Hmm.
who did a lot of lore for Fallout's and Elder Scrolls. And it made me so sad because like 10 months ago, he just disappeared. His channel's still up there. He's got like 1 million subscribers and just nothing. And I think he deleted his Twitter. He just disappeared. and it's the
Damn.
weirdest of things. I'll every once in a while I'll search his name on Twitter and be like, where'd he go? But I really love videos that focus on lore because a lot of these open world games, there's a lot of shit you miss
Yeah.
because it's just an overwhelming amount of it.
There's I'll have to because I'm not gonna remember the name, but there's a guy that is really good about the World of Warcraft lore, and my friend knows him, and I'll have to send you his name later. He's really fun to watch. I always like to watch. I can't remember the guys. I remember the series, but I can't remember the guys' names. It starts with a V. Is his name, but he does the Prepare to Cry series about the Dark Souls lore and Bloodborne and all that, and he really, really breaks down that stuff, and it's really, really awesome. Um, what is his name? Hang on, that's gonna bug me. Um, well, I think what we're gonna do now, Bargain, if that's okay, I think we'll go
Sure.
into the Q&A,
Okay.
if that's okay. And
By all means.
let's see, Vati Vidya is his name. Vaatividya,
Okay.
and he does a ton of here. I'll put this in there. Okay, so real quick while I'm getting that ready, to the people that are still in chat, thanks so much for sticking around. And we're now going to go to a Q&A section where if you would like to ask Bargain any questions, you're feel free to do so. Sorry. As always, memes are welcome. We try to keep it, TOS friendly. um, so with that being said, feel free to ask away. And yeah, we'll just wait just a moment for people to type since there's a couple minute delay. I need to fix that, but it helps with
Can
the
we
lag.
agree if and when we do a part two, not to do it on a holiday?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We can do it on holiday. Yeah.
I thought my wife brought that up. He was like, she says, so you're going to Yanni's thing on Sunday. And I was like, yeah. I'm like, that's Fourth of July. I'm like, I don't think that really hit me when we booked it, but
Well, I didn't say anything simply because I was like, well, if that's when he can do it, that's when he can, that's when he can do it.
right.
Um,
Well, I mean,
here's the Prepare to
oh, there's the
Cry.
link. Yeah.
This great series to watch.
Okay, fair enough.
Um,
Hmm.
okay, we'll wait and see.
Okay, prepare to cry remastered. Interesting. So my game plan after this, after we get off the call here, I one of the games I'm finishing up this week for my stream is South Park: Stick of Truth. But the next area I'm doing off stream, the abortion clinic, because I don't think it technically breaks TOS. And the last thing I didn't show was the character's parents having sex in the background. I didn't show that, even though if I understand TOS correctly, if it's non-skippable nudity or
Hmm.
sex, it's okay if I understand right. But I didn't want to risk it. I did allow everyone to see Randy getting probed by aliens, and that was borderline like I don't know if I should have done that. So I have the Xbox controller right here. As soon as we get off, I'm going to uh, knock that out real quick because I don't believe the rest of the game is anything too terrible. And if it is, I'm just gonna keep fingers crossed. But I talked with my mods and I'm like, the sex scene probably we should just go ahead and skip because it's not too long. We all kind of agreed like probably gonna skip that one.
I it's gonna be against TOS, but it's still hilarious. It's South Park. You take it. You
That's
take
what I'm saying though. I like
you take
if
the
I
good with the bad.
understand the wording right, if it's unskippable, or if you didn't force upon the content, like if you didn't like
So basically, God,
do a mod.
right? Not the was it the God of War 1, 2, and 3, the mini game scenes with Cleopatra. And
Right.
yeah,
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 that kind of thing. If they're optional and you're just not like, or like I said, a mod where like you're watching two characters having sex. If it's something like that, I think it's okay, but I don't trust TOS's wording remotely enough. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna have risk it.
yeah. There's no when it comes to here's the thing. I don't think Twitch knows their own TOS. So when it comes to based on certain things they've done, who they banned and who they haven't. But when it comes to that stuff, I just don't. I don't risk it either. If it was just like a person that was um like if I was playing a zombie game and it was like a naked zombie or something like that, like I don't really care about
That
that.
I do not worry about.
Yeah.
That would be such an I really think that's what, because there was some game that came out. My mind keeps going to Cyberpunk, but I don't think it was that. Where someone straight up asked Twitch, like, this season here, is that going to get? And they said it's fine. And I think it was something like just she had her top off or something. So the wording's very murky, like you said. I don't know.
Yeah, I safe better safe than sorry is
Right,
what
agreed.
I always try to play it as. So, um let's see here. Okay, so does anybody have we will not do this on a holiday next time, I promise. Does anybody have any questions though for Bargain?
And if you do and you don't feel like sharing, save it for next time. That's completely fine.
Yeah, I don't know. Usually have some of the people in chat who have their questions that they always want to ask. Okay. Well, I know I will ask in their stead because there's some of my community members that always want to ask people the same questions.
Bod
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah. Um so first is Shrek or Megamind?
That is such a mind fuck of a question because they're two very vastly different animated movies, but are both really good quality. But I think that I would have to go with Shrek because I think that overall, especially if we're talking to the first Shrek versus just Megamind itself, I think it had more consistent writing and jokes and just a better overall script than Megamind, because I think Megamind had some lulls to it. Good movie, but I just think over across the board, Shrek had perfect pacing when Megamind did not.
Okay.
I would also argue that, to an extent at least, I think there was slightly better voice acting in Shrek.
Okay.
And just some jokes landed better than others in Shrek as well. And Shrek, all Shrek is mocking the traditional
Disney fairy tale, yeah.
right, exactly. And I think that was a very unique thing. Megamind was kind of unique, but as far as, and I don't even know if you really call it unique. It was cool that it was from the perspective of the bad guy. I feel like we've gotten that before in some aspects, and maybe
Yeah.
maybe not in the exact same medium.
Well, the thing that always irks me about those films, and I like Megamind, but that always irks me about those films is whether it's Megamind, Wreck-It Ralph, um, Despicable Me,
Sure.
all that stuff. The bad guy's not really the bad guy, and like I want a full-fledged, Sephiroth drops from the ceiling, spoiler alert for people that are, kills areas, and we're just sitting there like, you mother, like I want that type of, villain. I don't want
I think
the
there's I think it's such a hard thing for a director to want to risk trying to have a redemption arc for someone that's done deplorable things. Uh, and there's plenty of examples for more mature content, but if you want to go into something that I guess is a decent segue from Shrek and Megamind, Avatar: The Last Airbender. You
Yeah.
had a redemption arc with Prince Zuko
Yeah.
because he did some fucked up things. Like it hints at it, but it's a kids show. But if you peel back the layers a little bit, he definitely murdered a fuck ton of people.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, they still it's really subjective whether or not you grow to like or accept his redemption arc. I like the character. I thought it was a great redemption.
Well, it's also played by Rufio from Hook.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, very true, very true. Uh, and I also just a really good voice actor as well.
Yeah.
I will say it's one of those things where it sounds funny, but I have to enjoy listening to someone talk.
Yeah.
And I could listen to him do a monologue for like an hour and not be upset about it, kind of thing.
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, Avatar, I definitely would put on, my top 10 shows of all time, not just even cartoon shows. I think it's.
You know what's nuts is I just finally watched it for the first time last year.
Oh, did you? When it came on Netflix?
That had to have been it. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's, I never ever look down on when somebody's like, I just got.
Better late than never.
Yeah.
That's always been my mindset as well.
I just got around to something because.
Well, let me ask you this, and I don't want to. We'll get right to your other questions, but what did you think of Legend of Korra in comparison?
I thought, well, one, the studio ran out of money. Um,
Fair.
so that the thing about it is that I liked it, again. I liked the ideas that they were proposing.
Execution just wasn't there for you.
The execution wasn't there, and the characters just they weren't as memorable.
I loved Aang's son.
But yeah, he was yeah, and I can't remember. He's played by
The dude that played Triple J in Spider-Man.
yeah.
J. Jonah Jameson, whose name is actually I can't believe it now all of a sudden.
Hang on.
Oh, that's gonna bug me.
I'll look at
He's in Invincible now as well, which is a fantastic show.
J.K. Simmons.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's another guy that has such a great speaking voice.
Yeah.
Voice acting. I'm shocked. I'm very happy with Invincible that he's had another really big voice acting gig that's really popular. I think I had two things with Legend of Korra I wasn't a big fan of. We'll get back to your other questions. The fact that there wasn't an overall antagonist consistently through the story arc wasn't good for me. And Avatar: The Last Airbender, for the most part, the leader of the Fire Nation is the central antagonist. Yeah, you had sub-plot antagonists, such as Prince Zuko, his sister, other people I can't remember. But the central, looming figure, kind of like Darth Vader in Star Wars,
was Mark Hamill.
I didn't even mean for that.
Yeah.
I had no idea he was going to be. Mark Hamill is, out of all the voice actors, I will recognize him before anyone. And it's a split second. Like, my wife always pokes fun at me for it. I start getting excited. I was like, let me guess it's Mark Hamill. I'm like, yeah, it's Mark Hamill. I fucking love Mark Hamill so fucking much. He is such a fantastic voice actor. And I had no idea he was going to be in there, so I was tickled to no end. And I just, I don't know if you've watched What We Do in the Shadows on FX.
I have not.
Oh my god, it's so good. I'm pretty sure you can watch it on Hulu. Spoiler alert, there's an episode that Mark Hamill cameos in. So that's enough reason for you to go watch it. But it's in its own right, it's such a really, really good show. But anyway, the other reason why I wasn't a big fan of Korra is the protagonist herself wasn't very likable.
Well, in what way?
kind of a bitch.
Well, I think that I think what they were trying to go with was a similar level of. I think they were trying to capitalize on that nostalgia with a similar level of arrogance that Aang had. Because well, it's not that Aang was really necessarily just straight up arrogant, but he was very much like
There
out
were
of
moments
touch.
of it, out of touch, and moments of arrogance that were, um,
And I think with Korra they tried to go with you're the chosen one, you're the avatar, and just put all this stuff on her. The issue, the main issue I had with it was, you know, there wasn't. Aang almost had the Man of Tomorrow, Alan Moore, Superman complex where he just didn't fit in the world. His nation was
sure,
gone.
right.
Um, and as the Avatar, there was really nobody to kind of guide him, etc., etc. So he kind of had to learn who he was through his friends. Korra, they tried to do that with Aang's son, have him be kind of the one to teach her and all that, but she didn't really learn it from the people around, and so she had a lot of weak supporting characters, and that's why I was kind of saying the characters weren't very memorable. Um,
No, they were not.
and I think that they just a lot of what they tried to do with her was they tried to make traits into how do I want to word this? They tried to make singular traits into a character,
Mm.
and I don't. I
Well,
just
it's one of those things too where a lot of the subplot lines they wanted to use were so rushed because, to your point, the lack of funding and just the lack of seasons and shorter seasons, like the main character, ending up with what's her face. I like that a lot, but I wish they could have expanded on that more so it didn't feel so like, hey, here's this. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Because I after like thinking about it after, I'm like, that makes a good pairing. But then like it's just kind of a surprise, like, oh, okay, this is happening. Cool. I'm here for
well, I,
it.
I think I think also too is the I mean it happens in scenarios, but the guy who was the perceived romantic interest, and I don't remember his name, but I do remember that he was just kind of like like he was just kind of shuffled off to the side, and it was just kind of like, yeah, stuff happens. And I feel like young love, it wouldn't have been that simple. It would have been a lot more complicated.
I
And,
just the my biggest thing was, and I hate to be so crass about it, but everyone was fucking everybody.
yeah,
And that kind of, I really didn't like that much. Like the final, I didn't ship, if that's what they call it. I didn't ship any of the characters together except for the final product. I actually thought that made a lot of sense for their different person, the two different personalities meshing together. But it's Nickelodeon tried capitalizing on a lesbian relationship. That's what it was. If you want to get down to the gritty of it, I think that's what it was.
well, I
They're
think
like, go ahead.
I was gonna say I think this is why we need more and more again, not the Kathleen Kennedy, what markets and what sells. We need true content creators
Right,
who
right,
can
right,
draw
right.
on their own experiences to tell stories and stuff like that. That's where you get actual natural progression. And
And what the shame of it is, you would have, I think, less bigoted opinions upon story arcs like this if there actually was depth to why it was happening. If that makes sense.
yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, I think because it becomes something where, um, in the LGBT community in particular, I've seen people's opinions change. They have an outside perspective, and then when their child comes out, they say, "Okay, well, my child's going through this. I didn't realize." It's always easy to analyze people in news articles or in a
Oh yeah,
snippet in a
and
podcast, but
it's
now
not, and of
now
course
my
it's not just
child's
that, but it's anything.
yeah, my child's telling me what they're going
Mm-hmm.
through.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, tragically, some people aren't receptive to it. And but In some cases they are, because it's like, okay, and it people would say, well, it shouldn't have to get to that point, but unfortunately, humans, I don't know what to tell you. People do get to that point. And and so it's one of those things where they build a connection because they have a personal relationship with that person going through that. And
Right.
I think it's kind of not to put words in your mouth, but I think when you can, for some people that might have a different viewpoint, even if you think it's the wrong viewpoint, if they build a connection when they're reading through and then they say, oh, okay, by the way, this, and this, that person now, most people I don't think would just abandon that character and go, well, I don't think that would happen. I would think they would go, well, hmm, I like this character. I want to know why they did this, but I do enjoy this character. I'm going to stick with this character through, through their arc.
Right.
Especially if
And I think you can definitely you can go with this with a straight relationship, right?
right.
If you let's say oh I'll give an example here. Let's say Star Wars. All right. Imagine the whole entire. I love how I keep getting back to Star Wars. Imagine the original trilogy, right? And this is going to get back to the Legend of Korra. Imagine the entire trilogy. At the very end of Return of the Jedi, it's proclaimed that Princess Leia and Lando are now an item.
Okay.
Where the fuck did that come from?
I zoned out for a second. I thought we were going to go back to Poe and Finn.
No, because I wanted that to happen.
Yeah.
No, that's the point I'm making though. Is I felt like, to an extent, that's how out of nowhere that relationship in Legend of Korra was. And yeah, you can make the case that they had more personal interactions, but it was never to the point to where I'm like, this makes sense. You know what I mean?
Well, I think any character that is well written is going to have longevity and a connection with audiences, no matter what their, and again, the scariest thing, this kind of goes back to the antagonist. The scariest thing about an antagonist isn't, necessarily the horrible things that they do. It's why I think, pound for pound, Magneto is, Eric Lyncher is probably one of the best antagonists of all time.
Right.
Because his whole argument is, I've seen what people do to people that are different, and I have some experience with this because, and that, you cannot necessarily counter his argument. It's the way
It's the same thing with not to cut you off. It's the same thing with Thanos in the MCU.
Yeah.
He explains it. You're like, well, I kind of get what he's saying. I don't know.
Yeah. But with Magneto, it's the action that he takes to to achieve the end that you can disagree with. But his point of that mutants will be ostracized and discriminated against. I mean, he's not wrong given human history. So, and his own personal experiences. So that's what makes an antagonist. And I never like to use villain because it seems so archaic and cartoony. When you said
Right.
villain, like Snidely Whiplash, just twisting his mustaches, the damsel in distress is laid out on the
now.
yeah, Dudley do right. Um, but yeah, that's what um, for me personally, that was kind of the defining force of antagonists when I was younger that I was kind of looking for is what their motivation was. Because I grew up reading like Greek mythology and all this stuff, and I always kind of hated, the gods because the gods just did stuff because they're like, we're gods. Like they just kind of did stuff because they could.
No rhyme or reason.
Yeah.
No, I agree. 100%.
Um, and it also reminds me of that movie with Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy, Trading Places. One of my favorite movies of all time.
Fantastic movie.
And at the end they're like basically ruining two people's lives because over a bet of $1 or something. Here you go, Mortimer. Or whatever. I can't remember their names. I think it was
All
Mortimer and
right.
something. I can't remember, but
Oh my god.
um, and so it's kind of what the gods of Greek mythology were. But yeah, with any character, when you have a genuine, honest reflection in their backstory and who they are, I think I as a writer, I don't, and I'm pretentious when it comes to this stuff, but as a writer, I don't think you can go wrong. Um, and some people are not going to like the character. Okay, that's fine. You don't like the character, but do you not like the character because of what they're doing, or do you not like the character because they're poorly written? Because in some cases, you're not supposed to like the character. I mean,
Right,
you
and
know,
that can make a really good character.
yeah,
A hated character can further a plot so much.
yeah. Especially when you do the mind fuck later on of making them like the character because they do something, admirable or redeemable, even
Right.
if it's to a small extent. Maybe they don't make up for everything that they did, but I don't know. It's one of those things where I just hope that storytelling goes in a much more personal direction and it
Mm.
doesn't keep going in this direction of things seem to be um oh god, what's the phrase that somebody used basically sterilized and vacuum sealed and I mean when somebody reads a story or they watch a TV show or a movie or play a game or something like that, not every game or not every IP is going to be like this, but if they're intended to, like The Last of Us, for instance, I think you should sit there at the end of it and go moment of reflection, and be like, well, damn, you know, I think that should happen,
Sure.
and I just hope that you know, we don't move away from that for these more, you know, um, one-dimensional characters, because I think it does a disservice to
Oh, I
everybody
agree.
involved.
I agree. I agree. I think that regardless of when it comes to a character's personality trait, regardless if it's religion, sexual orientation, whatever have you, if you bring that up in the plot, it I think it should be relevant to one of their other characters. Okay, so they're this, but why is that important to the story? That's anything. Otherwise, why bring it up? You know?
Yeah. Um, with that being said, I think,
We got really serious going
yeah,
from
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
Shrek and whatnot.
yeah, well, the thing is, we could definitely uh talk about this more. But I would definitely like to have you on at some point for a second because I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I would definitely enjoy that, and
Um,
definitely not during Fourth of July.
yeah. Um, but with that being said, I think you've now capped it. We have gone. This is the longest podcast I've done, so that's awesome.
Cool, cool.
So I'm happy with that. It was an awesome experience. I think what we're gonna do though is we're gonna go ahead and close it out,
Okay.
and I'm gonna do a closing statement. And while I do that, as is tradition, I would like for you, if you don't mind, to think of somebody that we're gonna raid. We're gonna let you
Oh,
pick,
yeah, I could handle that pretty easy peasy.
and if you want,
Uh,
you can just type their name in chat,
sure.
so I
Let
can.
me see. We were talking about streamers that do single player contents,
Hmm.
and someone I think is really fantastic is my buddy Shady Joker.
Okay.
And I just put it in the chat. He's playing Kingdom Hearts uh 2, I think, one of those games.
Oh, Pog.
Yeah, so he's a really good creator.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right, everybody. Would like to thank my guest. Obviously, I exaggerated his name a little bit at the beginning just because of the Twitter comment he put out one time. But Bargain Bid Gaming, super awesome dude. He is absolutely somebody that you all should go check out, especially if variety content or anything of that nature is up your alley. Would definitely recommend showing him some love, dropping him some follows, saying hi to him next time he's streaming, and yeah, and definitely looking forward to a part two. This was awesome, buddy. I do appreciate it, and thank you so much
Of
again
course.
to everybody from his community and from my community that stopped by, showed some support. Love you all. You all have been fantastic as always. Um, and yeah, thank you all so much for being here with us while we chat about Star Wars. Oh, thank you so much, buddy. I really do. I really, really
Of
do
course. Of
appreciate
course.
it. All right. With that being said, we're gonna hand things over to Shady Joker, and real quick announcement: the next guest will be on the 8th. We will be interviewing O'Jason, um, Tier 3 Overwatch player, and a good friend of Divine FPS, who we had on earlier. So be sure to check that out. And yeah, love you all, and see you all next time. Bye, everybody. Well, that ended perfectly. We waved just as it
Yeah, it was
transitioned.
good. It was good. Sorry we went on to the